On your way, Rostrum, stand up, face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barak Yahweh Bashan Yahweh Shai Asherah Nathan Lanawe Hashabak Bashalawam to what Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the Sabbath and peace. Thank you, so be it. Also, blessing of the Feast of Dedication, day 4. Barak Yahweh Bashan Yahweh Shai Asherah Lanawe Kanakha Yawam Da Bashalawam to what Amen. All right, so once again, bless you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the feast of dedication, 4th day in particular, in peace. Thank you, so be it. The Ali Ma'ar Shariah Makhad, Psalms 121. Anya Ryan Mayim Hariam Mayan Yabawa sorry Yabawa Mayahu Shamayim Waratazela Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala Yanawam Chashra Marka Han La Yanawam Wala Yeshan Chashra Yashra Yahweh Shamaria Yahweh Tazalia Yim Yawamam Hashamash La Kaya Wayarak La Balayala Yahweh Yashamar Makha Ra Yashamar Napasha Yahweh Yashamar Habalakya Wabawa Ayat Ma'aitha Wa I Walam Basham Yahweh Shak the Wada Aman.
Psalm 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharala, hero Israel. Shema Yasharala, Yahweh, Ahoy Yahweh, Akah. Shema Yasharala, Yahweh, Ahoy Yahweh, Akah. Shema Yasharala, Yahweh, Ahoy Yahweh, Akah.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Tapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abinawa Shabbat Shemayim Kodash Haya Shanka Yahweh Malakwath Ka Saba Rataza one Ka Haya Aisha Barataza Ka Bashemayim Nathan Lanawa Lacham Yuwam Zad Wasalakanawa Kabawat Nawa Kasalach Nawa Kabawat Yanawa Wala Abiyanawa, oh, Messiah one above, how shine away, Murai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Wa Allah, Wa Thapara, Why Walam, Maman.
Matthew 6 and 9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. All right, sure. I'm going to tell us about 10 Commandments. La'ad, Yahayat, Lakad, Alahayim, Akariam, Alapanyat, La'ad, Thaishad, Lakad, Pasod, Wala'ad, Thaibadam, La'ad, Talakwaka, Shamwat, Yahawat, Alahayakad, Lashubat, Zakat, F, Hayawam, Hashabat, Lakodashwad, Kabad, Abiakat, Wa Amakat, La'at, Taratazak, La'at, Tana'at, La'at, Taganab, La'at, Tainad, Shakur, La'at, Tachamad, Ko, Ashabat, Lara'ika, Amen.
Exodus 20 and 2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy power giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Amen. Yeshua, please be seated. Barakateh Hawa, ba Shemi Hawa Shai, at Sharanat and Amaparia, Gapin, Tuwada Aman. La Yahweh ba Shemi Hawa Shai, of Yashar Allah. English translation: Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Jerusalem, stand face Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakawam, Abiyah, Ranawa, Eliyawan, Malak, Shamayim, Warataza, Waka, the Barin, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Arawanawa, Habnawa, Hapalat, Yawaitaza, Yahawashai, Zakarnawa, Yahawa, Baratazawan. Ainke Yash'ala Zarna Bana was up Yash'ala Oh Nanawa Yum Yum Naita Kayawum Yum Makuda Babakushay Shalak Mike Allah Watazwada Alahayam La Maganawa Raparnawa Washima I don't know by Shalak Haruka Show Yahushai Lanawa Alabanawa Rabian Kakama Thabawana What I show the Barker Basham Yahushai the what them yeah why will Amen. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, our wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel, Most High, we beg you right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Natan Lanawa, HaTorah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Natan Lanawa, Award, Lara Awat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Natan Lanawa, Quran, Ha'ayah, Lakorah, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Natan Lanawa, Hasheman, Zayat, Lamashak, Yasha'ala, Yeshua. Be seated. Okay, so Shalom Yasharella. So Shalom everybody that's here in Philly. Shalom everybody watching us on live stream, and Shalom everyone listening in on teleconference. Welcome to Ha Yasharella Kanas with the Congregation of Israel, where we teach that the descendants of slaves as well as the indigenous peoples found mainly here in North Central South America and the Caribbean make up the southern and northern kingdoms of 12 tribes of Israel. And that we as a people have fallen to a lower state, politically, economically, religiously, because we broke the laws of God found in the Bible given to us by Moses, that we come out of the lower state that we've fallen to by turning back to these commandments we broke, by following Jesus the Christ, which we know comes in the volume of the book, as is stated in the Old and New Testament, respectively, Hebrews 10 and 7, as well as Psalms 48:7. And one way we do that is by keeping the Sabbath holy from Friday, Sunday, to Saturday, sundown every week to the best of our ability. And also, as we've been discussing in these past couple lessons, we're keeping the Feast of Dedication this week. We're in the fourth day in particular, so we're at the halfway point. I know there's some discussion around, the best way or the best method to keep track of what day we're in, right? So a method I like to use is just pretty much looking at whenever the new moon was, which we know it was the 30th of November, which was a couple Saturday nights ago, about 4 or so, when you look on the calendar. And then every time you count down from that night, so say it was November 30th at sundown, that was when the ninth month came in. That means sundown the following Saturday night would be the 8th day, right? Because you have to add 7 to that. Then a week from that, sundown would be 15, because you add another 7. And then on top of that, if you add another 7, you get 22. And then finally you get 29. So just think of your 7 times tables, right? 7, 14, 21, 28, and just add 1 to it. Since when you come in with the new moon, that begins the first day. So a week from that point would be the 8th day. A week from that point would be the 15th day. A week from that point would be the 22nd. And a week from that would be the 29th. I just kind of use those days to kind of figure out, okay, where am I at in the week? Just at least a technique that I use. Hopefully that'll help you out too. You're trying to keep track of, okay, what day of the month are we in, right? So once again, we're keeping the Sabbath. We're in the 4th day of Hanukkah, and we're going to be going through 1 Chronicles chapters 2 and 3. Once again, 1 Chronicles chapter 2 and 3, which I'll try to be as brief yet as complete as possible as we touch on the names we go through this time around. I know 1 Chronicles chapter 1 was a bit long when we went into it about 3 weeks ago. I know 2 Chronicles, 2 Kings 25 was pretty direct, but 1 Chronicles chapter 1 has a lot in there. So it's it can be a challenge sometimes to go through things, as Kunzmak would say, judiciously, expeditiously, right? Where the way I say it is like to be as brief yet as complete as possible when it comes to the breakdown, which I know you guys don't want to have your eyes glazed over as you go through the lesson. While you're at home watching, on the phone listening, you're just like, oh man, I'm trying. Too many details. And I know a few of you actually like the details, some don't. So it's all about finding that nice balance, right? Of giving details, but at the same time, not going in or drawing folks along too much, making references as needed, but always kind of bringing it back to the main theme. I think what makes Chronicles so difficult because it's really just names, but names have stories behind them, right? Not just people, but places too. So that's where it's like, this could be as short or as long, as you really want it to be, depending on how much you want to go into each name and where that name might come up in this place or that place. So I'll touch on the key names as the Spirit will allow, and try my best to give at least some things that have come out to me or have jumped out at me over the years studying things that may have not have been as obvious. If I come across those things, I'll share them with you guys. But I know for a lot of you guys, it's been the truth a little bit. A lot of us will be familiar already.
Let me say this too, and if you were familiar, Chronicle is pretty much a journal of what you already. If you read First Kings, Second Kings, the story of the kings, pretty much Chronicle give you a detailed overview of everything that was said already in those chapters.
Kind of. Yeah. And it's that, and it's even going back before that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess a comparison might be like, think of the line of Christ, right? In Matthew, think of that as like the kings, right? Where we go start with Abraham, but then the one in Luke goes all the way back to Adam, right? So with Chronicles kind of goes back to the beginning, right? Like Luke chapter 3 does for Christ's late age, whereas in Matthew starts with Abraham, whereas in the Kings, it starts with Abraham, but it starts with pretty much the end of the Judges and the beginning of the Kings, right? Which I know when you go into the Bible translations, First and Second Samuel at one point referred to as First and Second Kings, and then First and Second Kings actually was Third and Fourth Kings. That's why you'll see in some Bibles it'll say the First Book of Kings, also known as First Samuel. Since we know technically First Samuel is the end of the Judges, with Samuel, him being the last judge, and the ushering in the beginning of the time of Kings, starting with King Saul, right? So yeah, just a way to kind of compare those. And I'll say my name, Nabia Zerbabal. I have the pleasure and privilege of going through the lesson with you guys today. Write down for your records, today is the 28th of December, 2024, according to the Gregorian calendar. But according to our calendar, right, which we know November 30th was when the new moon came in, which means we're kind of like the days, and yeah, the days of both calendars kind of match up to a certain extent, as far as at least when the sun went down, we got into the 28th day, right? So when the sun set on the 27th, which was yesterday, it became the 28th day, right? And we're still on the 28th day until sundown tonight, which will be the 29th day. Remember, November 30th was the first day, meaning the December 7th, which was a week later at sundown, was the 8th day. The 14th of December at sundown was the 15th day. The 21st at sundown December was the 22nd day. And then when the sun goes down today, it'll be the 29th day of the month. We're counting from November 30th being when the new moon came in. So that means right now we're still in the 28th day, but when the sun sets tonight, it'll be the 29th day of the 9th month. Okay? Like I said, it's just a little technique that I like to use to keep track of when we're at in the week. And I use the new moon to do it. But hopefully it's hard for you to remember. That might help. So the 9th month and the 28th day, according to our calendar. Okay, so let's get into it. First Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 1, which if you look at these first two verses, they're more or less pretty much going to go into all the sons of Jacob, also known as Israel, whose name was changed to Israel after he wrestled with the angel and was found victorious, right? Or prevailed. So First Chronicles 2, 1 and 2, it reads, these are the sons of Israel, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar and Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, and Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Right? So those are the 12 sons. But to link with chapter 2, verse 1 and 2, it's a long section. We're not going to read it, but just link it. But you can just link Genesis, chapter 29, verse 31, all the way down to Genesis chapter 30 in verse 24, which goes into Jacob and his wives, right? All of them having his children at different times, right? Starting off with Leah having his first four, which would be Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. And then him having children with his wives that were his wives' handmaids, right? Which goes into Dan, Naphtali, and then Gad and Asher, right? Built with Zilpah and Bilhah. Or I should say Bilhah and Zilpah in that order. And then he had Issachar and Zebulun with Leah again. And then finally we have Joseph, which he had with Rachel, because remember she was barren all that time. And then later on, he would have another child with her, which she would end up dying after bearing him, named Benjamin. Right? So for those first 12, Genesis 29 to 31, Genesis 29, 31, chapter 30 and verse 24, that goes into those 12 we see here. But now, as far as chapter 35 of Genesis, you can write 16 to 20. So once again, Genesis 35, 16 to 20, that goes into Benjamin being born. Which as we go through Chronicles, we get to the section where we're going to his posterity as well. And then another thing you can add on to this as well, you can write Genesis 41, 46 to 52, which goes into Joseph when he was in Egypt, when he gave birth to his two sons, which later on, Jacob would count his two sons as individual tribes, right? Which will be Ephraim and Manasseh. So Genesis 41, 46 to 52 goes into Ephraim and Manasseh and their birth. In the scriptures, we can go to show pretty much that they will be counted as tribes, right? Joshua 14:4 is a major, like a pool, to get it, but you just write it down as a reference, where it talks about the children of Joseph being two tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh, right? Joshua 14:4 reference. Okay.
And who today they call Puerto Ricans and Cubans.
Okay, exactly. All right. So reading on, First Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 3, it reads, the sons of Judah, Er, and Onan, and Shelah, which three were born unto him of the daughter of Shua, the Canaanitess. It says, and Er, the firstborn of Judah, was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and he slew him. So you can just write this verse down for what we're reading about here. In this situation, you go Genesis 38 as a whole, it talks about this, but namely, you can just write down Genesis 38, 3 to 5 to link with 2 and 3. Once again, Genesis 38, verses 3 to 5.
Oh, so there you go.
So Genesis 38, 3 to 5 covers what we just read here in 2 to 3, as far as those sons of Judah and what happened with them. And even a story around what we're reading here when it says in verse 4, and Tamar, his daughter-in-law, bare him Perez and Zerah. All the sons of Judah were 5, right? So you go to the story behind how even that happened, and even how he ended up laying down with his daughter-in-law to where she conceived and bore twins, right? The story pretty much led up to that because, yeah, once again, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, it's all there when it comes to Israel. You know, for the good that we did and even the wrong that we did, right? But now reading on, it says in verse 5, and the sons of Perez, Hezron, and Hamul, and the sons of Zerah, Zimri, and Ethan, and Heman, and Calcol, and Dara, 5 of them in all, right? We're talking about those sons that came out of those 5 sons that he had, right? Naming Perez and Zerah in particular, right? Which that Perez is interesting, even as far as how he got his name, meaning breach, him being one of the twin boys that Tamar, his daughter-in-law, bear. Because you read the story, it talks about his brother coming out first, but then as his brother come out, he pushed past him and said, "Now I'm coming out," and then Perez came out first, hence him being given that name, which means to breach. Verse 7, the sons of Carmi, Akar, or you'll see it spelled also Achan, but referring to the same person. It says, the trouble of Israel who transgressed in the thing accursed, right? So now, when you get into this, what do you call it? These descendants, right? Achan, the trouble of Israel who transgressed the thing accursed. Because when you check it out, as far as the generations between when we first came into Egypt and then when we became, or I should say, when we were delivered out of Egypt through Moses, it was kind of like pretty much, if we trace back, say, when we first were brought here to America and look at the time that we're in now, right? Some of us may only be here maybe 4 generations, some 5, right? Some 6, but you'll even see that sometimes it might only be like 3 or 4 generations from the time that we were first brought in captivity. Even you look at Moses' family tree, which we'll get into later, you read about how many generations down he was from Levi. It wasn't that many, right? Lead up to the time from Jacob and the 70 souls up until the time of when Moses came on the scene and delivered us out of Egypt, right? For some of our families, we'd only been from Egypt, as far as generations go, maybe 3 or 4 generations, right? Depending on how old our grandparents may have lived before they gave birth to those particular kids. I remember seeing there was in the news not too long ago, I think it was around COVID time, but they said it was a lady that died, and they said she was she must have, I think, close to 100, not 100, but she said she was the last recipient of funds that went pretty much towards she was the last person that died in America that had on record that was still receiving a Civil War stipend because her father fought in the Civil War and had her at his old age, right? So she was still alive, getting a stipend from the government for what her father did. As far, I think he said he fought for the Confederacy, but then he changed to the Union, right, midway. I guess he had a change of heart, so to speak. But then had her in his old age, and then she was able to get that a stipend from fighting in the war. So just one generation away from the Civil War times, a person that just died during COVID time. So, that's just, kind of puts things in perspective, like, wow, she's one generation removed from over 100 years ago. So they can be that close together sometimes. So that's spread out as well. So just, something to think about, something to consider. We look at these so-and-so, they get so-and-so and go, oh, wait a minute. They're only a couple generations down, but now we're in this time period with these people. How did we get from this point to this point so quick? But it can happen. So yeah, this Achan is the same one who was during the time of Moses, who it says transgressed in the thing accursed. So link with 2 and 7, you can just write down Joshua chapter 6 in verse 18. We see the warning where Joshua put it out to the people, look, we're going to take over the city, but only take these things. But the things that were made of these nations that were dedicated to whatever their idols were, if they were considered accursed. But he said which things you couldn't take and which things you could not. But then we jump forward from Joshua 6:18 to chapter 7, verse 22 down to 26. We see that judgment that this Achan, or Akar spelled here, but Achan, had to face because he didn't listen. And he confessed, yeah, I saw this Babylonish garment. It was nice, and some other things too. And we hear Joshua's judgment. Why have you troubled the Lord this day? Today the Lord troubled thee, right? Because the Most High was having us drop dead in the camp. Josh was running through the camp trying to figure out what's going on. Why are we dying? I thought we do everything we're supposed to do, following the Most High. We're not even at battle right now. We're dropping dead. Something must have went wrong. Somebody must have did something we're supposed to. And that's when he confessed. And then they took care of him and his family, stoned them. We had in chapter 7, verse 22 to 26. But that's talking about in verse 7 here. Now, back in 2 Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 8, it reads, "And the sons of Ethan, Azariah, the sons of Hezron, that were born unto him, Jeremiel and Ram." You'll see it's also spelled Aram when you look at the line of David, right? In Matthew chapter 1, I just said the line of David, well, really the line of Christ, going back to David and then going back to Abraham after that. You'll see it spelled with an A, but it really comes from the Hebrew, just means high or exalted, right? You go into that name, Ram. Anytime you see Ram or Ram in a name, it usually means high or exalted. But yeah, you'll see it Aram there, but referring to the same thing. It says, and Kalube, right? Which had some Bibles you'll see in the side caption, it says Caleb here, right? So it's just spelled a little different here, but that name Caleb in the Hebrew actually means dog. I think it's kind of ironic. Given that we look at the how dogs can be looked at one way in one context, as far as it could be very what do you call it? Very unbecoming to be referred to or be likened to a dog. But then dog also can be looked at for its positive qualities as far as it being, loyal, being dedicated, and being, as we were saying now, man's best friend. It's all context. Even when we use our language now, we always make that joke. Or we talk about dogs and cats, very popular pets across the world. Usually, at least in Israel's language here in North America, when we refer to someone as a dog, it's usually a term of endearment, right? Whereas you refer to someone as a cat, not so much. More so, keep an eye on those cats over there. But these are my dogs right here. We always laugh about that, how that kind of came to be. But just looking at the nature of those animals, I think we can pretty much figure out why how that came to be. Speaking of which, it's raining here, so like the famous idiom in North America, man, raining cats and dogs. I know we're talking about cats on the dedication service, right? I know that was Hans was going into our cats were revered as like holy or sacred according to the Egyptians, right? Pull up some history and some pop culture references showing that. But anyway, Musa made all things, right? That's what that name means. You go into it. Reading on in verse 10, to really get into Caleb's posterity as well, which is kind of interesting because according to some scholars, they say, it's referring to that same Caleb, and others separate him out and have him as a separate Caleb or two Calebs, which I think is interesting. But we'll get into their lineages nonetheless. Reading on in verse 10, it says, "And Ram begat Aminadab, and Aminadab begat Nahshon, prince of the children of Judah." So this Ram, Aminadab, and Nahshon are very interesting, very are important in that these were the ones that were alive when we were numbering the people, and Moses had appointed princes at each of the 12 tribes. And this Nahshon, son of Aminadab, was the prince that was pretty much set up. The time Moses was rounding up all the people and arranging us in the wilderness, right? Getting us organized in the book of Numbers, right? But when you read in the first chapters of Numbers, you get to I think it's around chapter 6, chapter 7. I think it's chapter 7. It goes where all those princes are named. But let me link this up real quick first in chapter 2 and verse 10. Another little tidbit that may not jump out exactly, like it's one of those things, unless you're really looking up the names and seeing where those names come up at, you may not come across this or notice this. But when you read Exodus chapter 6, verse 23, which Exodus 6, we'll come back to this probably a couple Sabbaths from now. We go into Chronicles, which are going more into the Levites and their families. But check this out. Exodus chapter 6 in verse 23. This is an interesting link where, like it tells in the New Testament when we talk about Elizabeth and Mary, right? Them both being significant women. Elizabeth being from the house of Aaron, Mary being from the house of David, right? How they both would give birth to very important figures, right? Elizabeth giving birth to John the Baptist, and then Mary giving birth to, none other than our Lord and Savior, Jesus the Christ in the flesh, right? But it talks about them being cousins when you read in certain scriptures. You say cousins, interesting. So they're related, but yeah, you'll see different connections between those family lines even earlier on, right? As far as what we now refer to as the house of Aaron and the house of David. You go back in time, you see they have connections, which I want to show this one. This is Exodus chapter 6. In verse 23. So Exodus chapter 6 and verse 23, it says, and Aaron took him Elisheba, daughter of Aminadab, sister of Nahshon, to wife. So that's the same one we're reading about here in Chronicles, right? And she bare him Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. So the first generation of priests after Aaron, their mother was the sister to these men. So this Aminadab, right? His daughter was this Elisheba. So she was a sister to Nahshon, right? So even before the house of David was a thing, this is David's ancestry. But we see this princely line of Judah being used or being reckoned later on with David as you go down the line. But the sister to Nahshon, who was David's ancestor, right? Her being ancestor to David as well, right? She would give birth to the first generation of priests, which, we'll get into their story later on too when we get into the families of the Levites. But I just thought that was interesting to see that Aaron's wife was a princess, if you will, of Judah, right? That they married. It says Genesis chapter 6 and verse 23. Just to show that connection between those two families even back then.
Nothing crazy. We just follow up regarding your guys' business.
Now this is First Chronicles chapter 2. Read on. It says, I'll read verse 10 again. And Ram begat Abinadab, and Abinadab begat Nahshon, spelled a little different in Exodus 6:23, but the same individual. Prince of the children of Judah. Right? And then as far as, I wasn't going to pull it first, but let me get numbers real quick. Numbers chapter 7. When it goes to the different priests and what they will offer. And on what day. I'll start from 12, Numbers chapter 7 and verse 12. It says, and he that offered his offering the first day was Nahshon, the son of Aminadab of the tribe of Judah, right? The same man we're reading about. His offering was a silver charger, the weight thereof was 130 shekels, one silver bowl of 70 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary. Both of them were full of fine flour mingled with oil for a meat offering. 1 spoon of 10 shekels of gold full of incense. One young bullock, one ram, one lamb of the first year for a burnt offering. One kid of goats for a sin offering. And for a sacrifice of peace offerings, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, 5 lambs of the first year. This was the offering of Nahshon, the son of Amminadab. So I stopped at 17. But just another mention of that Nahshon. Like I said, as you go on, it goes into the other offerings, those other princes gave up. But yeah, number 7, we'll come back to that also in the future as we go into the posterity of other tribes. But going back to 1 Chronicles chapter 2, I'm going to read on in verse 11. 1 Chronicles 2 and 11, it says, and Nahshon begat Salma, and Salma begat Boaz. You'll see it also spelled Salmon. It says, and Boaz begat Obed, and Obed begat Jesse. Right? So now in 1 Chronicles 2, 11 and 12, we see this lineage, not only going back up to verse 3, actually, but we could technically link this up to 3 all the way down to 12. But you can read this also in Ruth, because we know when it comes to the book of Ruth, it's talking about key figures in that family line, namely Boaz, when it comes to Ruth, a widow of that same family, where they try to find a next of kin that she could actually have children, since her husband had died, who was of that same line. So to find someone of the same line according to that law, to continue that posterity, continue that inheritance. But like I said, we read the story of Ruth as a whole, it goes into that whole story. I'm just going to read the last part of Ruth. Because oftentimes we'll read that story and go, oh, Judah, you married a Moabite, right? So that means you can marry Moab, but you go into the story, it's like there's a situation around that, right? It really has to do with that man that she married before that was Judah, and then to continue on his line as far as his inheritance. That was more so why that was brought into effect in that situation. It wasn't something that we would just regularly do, right? Just like we even read above about Judah marrying a Canaanitess, right? We look at that and go, oh, Judah had kids with a Canaanitess. Oh my goodness. But here we are, right? For better or worse. So you'll hear sometimes gainsayers out there too. They go, oh, you guys, you Israelites, you have to God chose the people. Look at this. Look at what Jacob did to Esau. That's messed up, man. Look at what Jacob's sons did to their own brother Joseph. That's messed up. And we're just like, yeah, hello, we're not disagreeing with that. We acknowledge that, right? Even now, do we bear the judgment as a people, but even as tribes for certain things that our forefathers did, right? In some cases, we were our forefathers or foremothers that did those things. And we're back now in this new life, same spirit, but different body, going by a different name. We have that too. You read about how regeneration works, right? How you might be a different man, a different woman, but you were that same spirit that was here before. We just don't know who we were. So we acknowledge that. That's all part of the soul cycle and the Most High judgment works, right? We read in the 10 Commandments. It says, the Most High, the jealous God, he says, he visiting iniquity of the fathers upon the children into the 3rd and 4th generation. So that judgment happens. Sometimes it might be evident, other times it may not be so clear. But it's there, it's recorded. So we have to just acknowledge that. Other nations, they'll take their history and try to whitewash it, clean it up. But like I said before, the good, the bad, the ugly, not reference to the old Western. But it's all there for our people, right? And definitely other nations, but especially for our people, since we're the focal point. Even though you can find every nation in here, as far as what their first name was. So yeah, this is Ruth again. Just want to put that out there, little disclaimer. Ruth chapter 4, where it goes to the same family line leading up to David's father Jesse. Ruth chapter 4, start at verse 18, it reads, now these are the generations of Pharez, right? So it jumps all the way back to Pharez, the firstborn of Judah, and his daughter-in-law Tamar, who became his wife, inadvertently given to that story you read about Genesis 38 and how that transpired. right? Him sleeping with her, not knowing who she was, and she disguised herself as a prostitute. But even her doing that, the story goes into why she did that, because he was supposed to give her his third born son, since the previous sons had died due to sin, right? And that was according to our law. We read Deuteronomy 25. If a woman's married to a man, he died, she's supposed to marry the next brother in line to raise up seed until this brethren's life, as far as his lineage to continue. And it goes into if the brother refused, which he can, but how it's pretty much considered a dishonorable thing, dishonor your older brother like that. And it says that she'll cast a shoe at you and spit in your face. And it says you'll be known as the man who did not want to raise seed unto your brother. Seems kind of strange, right? Because we haven't really seen anything like that, nowadays. But that's in our law, right? Because inheritance is very important, right? For every tribe, but then also within a tribe, within families, each son has a line to continue, right? And his soul, you want a line to continue on so that this family line can go on. But it says, once again, these are the generations of Pharez. Pharez begat Hezron, and Hezron begat Ram, Ram begat Abinadab, and Abinadab begat Nahshon, we just read about. And Nahshon begat Salmon. It says Salma in Chronicles, referring to the same person. And Salmon begat Boaz, and Boaz begat Obed, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David. Right? Which David, we're going to him a little bit more in chapter 3. Right now, we're just focused on Jesse at this point. But let's jump back to First Chronicles. But yeah, that was Ruth chapter 4, 18 and chapter 22. So First Chronicles chapter 2, in verse 13, it reads, and Jesse begat his firstborn, Eliab, and Abinadab, the second, and Shema, the third, Nathaniel, the fourth, Radiah, the fifth, Ozem, the sixth, David, the seventh, right? So when you read about these boys of Jesse, you actually read about them when you go back to 1 Samuel 16, right? You go back in time, it talks about these 7 sons of Jesse, right? David being the youngest of the group. But here they're just all being named, whereas I think back in Samuel's, it just refers to the 3 eldest, since they were the ones that Saul had in his army. Because remember, according to 1 Samuel 8, the king had that power to call sons and daughters into his court or his house to either serve in his army, or to work in his gardens, or to be like bakers and cooks for him, right? He had that power to summon different families of Israel to support his court. That was part of that law that Samuel outlined for the king in 1 Samuel 8. But yeah, as far as 13 and then down to 15, I didn't write this one down. I thought I wrote this one down, but for 13 and 15, you just write down 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse 10. When Samuel goes to see Jesse to anoint the next king, since Saul fell out of favor at that point. So once again, 1 Samuel 16 and 10. I'll read some verses, other verses. I'm just going to pull this for the sake of time, but just make sure you write them down as a reference for later. But now here in 1 Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 16, it reads, whose sisters were Zeruiah and Abigail, and the sons of Zeruiah, Abishai and Joab and Asahel, 3, right? So now these two women, Zeruiah and Abigail, they were sisters to Jesse, right? Which, if we know about Abishai and Joab and Asahel, right? Those 3 men, right? You read about them being in David's army, right? Them being high up in David's army in particular. Joab being David's captain of the host for a very long period of time, right? He referred to them oftentimes as the sons of Zeruiah, right? Oftentimes accompanied with, "Ye sons of Zeruiah, you be too hard for me," right? Because in certain circumstances, when David was trying to sue for peace, given the conflict that went on between the house of Saul and the house of David, even after Saul's death, on many occasions, David would try to sue for peace and then achieve it, whereas Joab wanted, revenge for his brother Asahel. And then David's like, "Oh, okay, I hear that, but, for the sake of peace, for the sake of us not losing any more lives, given these wars we're fighting, let's try to work things out," right? But Joab was a little bloodthirsty. He wanted that revenge for his brother, and there was some other situations too that Joab where he helped, but then he also caused problems as well. And ended up being at the end when it was time for the changing of the kings in David's old age. He told Solomon, "You got to take care of Joab because him being a little too bloodthirsty when it comes to trying to act as a captain of the host or a man of war during times of peace when it wasn't necessarily needed, or there might have been a better way to go about it." Like I said, that's a class in of itself, going into those stories around Joab, and then Abishai was a similar way too, where when they had the advantage on Saul in certain cases, Abishai would be like, "My Lord David, please just say the word. I'll fall on him and kill him at this moment. He's asleep. We got the advantage." David said, "Hold on. He said to Zeruiah, relax. He's the Lord's anointed, right? Yes, we have the advantage, but let's just send the message that we could have, but we didn't, right?" And then, when Saul realized, and I think he shouted to David from a distance, on a mountaintop, like from a hilltop, and because when he woke up, they were like distant, they were already far apart. And you see Saul having like that, moment of remorse, calling out to David, "David, alas, my son, my son." But then the evil spirit will come back and he'll go after him again. Like I said, it's another class, kind of go into all those details, right? So link with 2 and 16, just write down 2 Samuel chapter 2 in verse 18, where it names these 3 boys that were the sons of Zeruiah, who was Jesse's sister, which means Joab, Abishai, and Asahel, that would have made him and David, they were first cousins. Kind of funny too, because we get into Benjamin, Saul, his general Abner, they were first cousins as well. So you might want to call it nepotism. Okay, sure. It's not necessarily wrong per se, right? What really makes it wrong is if you respect the person of your family when they do something that's wrong, right? As opposed to hiring family, because who doesn't want to keep inheritance, keep wealth, keep businesses within the family, right? If they can, right? Who doesn't want to do that? Who hasn't done that throughout history, right? Which is another topic of discussion, right? As far as under certain circumstances, you might have someone that might prefer an outsider to carry on their affairs than their own children, depending on how they are, right? As far as how they conduct themselves. There's even Proverbs all about that too. So that links with the 2 and 16, 2 Samuel 2 and 18. Now, check this out. It says in 1 Chronicles 2 and 17, and Abigail bare Amasa, and the father of Amasa was Jether the Ishmaelite, right? So you'll see his name mentioned as Ithra, an Israelite, right? But referring to the same figure when you read this in 2 Samuel 17 and 25. Remember, sometimes figures might have a name and also have like a surname, right? You see this sometimes come up in the Chronicles, right? Where you'll say the father of so and so, but then it may not necessarily be referring to their immediate father, but might be referring to their ancestor, depending on the context, right? We just said father. It could be your immediate father, it could be your grandfather, it could be your great grandfather, but it might just say father, it might just say son of. But the son doesn't mean necessarily the immediate son. It refers to a son going down, right? Down the line. So sometimes you'll see that when you translate it from the Hebrew. So it may appear as though, is that contradicting? But no, it's just talking about someone who comes from that line, refers to as the son of, right? Because we're here right now, we're all considered sons of God, right? Just like Adam was considered a son of God, we all consider ourselves sons of Adam. Even though Adam, he's our father, but he's our father going way back. Just like Noah's our father going way back. He still can be called our father. So you translate those words, it could mean father or ancestor. Same for Amma, which is mother or ancestor as well. Hebrew version. So link 2 and 17, the First Chronicles, with 2 Samuel chapter 17 and verse 25. It makes reference to this same Amasa, which he comes up in the story too. You read on him and Joab having some dealings, and Joab with his unfortunate bloodthirstiness during times of peace had a fallout with him as well. When you read about that story, because he was a mighty man as well. This Mesa. Yeah, because that story goes into when Absalom became the ruler for a period of time after he had a coup. He carried out a coup d'etat pretty much against his father David, which those reasons also there's a story behind that also. But it talks about Absalom setting him up to be the captain of the host instead of Joab. But yeah, in 2 Samuel 17 and 18 goes more into that story. Now, reading on in 1 Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 18, and we're shifting back to Caleb now. It says, and Caleb the son of Hezron begat children of Azubah his wife, and of Jeriel. Her sons are these, Jesher and Shobab and Ardon. And when Azubah was dead, Caleb took unto him Ephrath, which bare him Hur, and Hur begat Uri, and Uri begat Bezaliel. So now this Bezaliel, this name doesn't ring a bell or doesn't remind you of something. Let's take a look real quick. I think we read about this not too long ago when we were doing the I think it was the feast of dedication service, the opening service with Khan Samak, where he read about Bezalel. I believe he was the son of Uri as well. Let's see. Let's go to Exodus real quick. Sometimes names can come up more than once. Let's make sure we got the right one. So Exodus chapter 30, 35. Exodus chapter 35. Actually, he's mentioned here too, but I think he's mentioned before this. Let me just make sure. 31. Yeah, I'll go back to his first mention. I'll give you all three. So you have to link with 19. So link with 2 and 19 of Chronicles. Oops. Here we go. This is Exodus 31. It was read from 1 down to 5. It says, and Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, see, I have called by name Bezaleel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom and understanding and in knowledge and in all workmanship, to devise cunning works, to work in gold and in silver and in brass and in cutting of stones, to set them, and in carving of timber, and to work at all manner of workmanship. It mentions another brother here, Aholiab, the son of Ahishamite of the tribe of Dan, who was given similar talents, right? We won't go into him so much, but I want to touch firstly on Bezaleel initially, since we're talking about Judah right now, right? Referring to that same line, that same family, we're reading about here in 1 Chronicles 2 and 19, right? So that's Exodus 31, 1. I stopped at 5, but then also he's mentioned in 35. '30 to 33. To get right down, 35, 30 to 33 is also. So chapter 35 of Exodus, verses 30 down to 33. Where it shows the house that he came out of. Okay. So now going back to 1 Chronicles chapter 2, let's read on in verse 21. It reads, and afterward Hezron went in unto the daughter of Machir, the father of Gilead, whom he married when he was 80 years old, and she bare him Segub. So now this daughter of Machir, the father of Gilead, he's important as well, right? Because when we go into I think we reference this also briefly. We reference it a lot of times, but when we go back to Numbers again, we read about this Machir. He is a forefather in Manasseh, right? Who had sons and daughters, obviously, but then there's a story that goes into a man of that house called Zelophehad, right? Which kind of starts in 36, but then ends up getting resolved in 36, that chapter as a whole. But I'll just read the first couple of verses. I won't go into it fully. But in Numbers 36 and 1, it reads, and the chief fathers of the families of the children of Gilead, which that city Gilead, just always remember that being in the region of Manasseh, right? Even when we get down to Gideon, the judge in Judges, you read about him coming out of the families of Manasseh as well, and him being tied to Gilead also. It says, the son of Machir, same Machir we read about in Chronicles, the son of Manasseh of the families of the sons of Joseph, came near to speak before Moses and before the princes of the chief fathers of the children of Israel. And they said, the Lord, or Yahweh, commanded my Lord to give the land for an inheritance by lot to the children of Israel. And my Lord was commanded by the Lord, or Yahweh, to give inheritance of Zelophehad, our brother, unto his daughters. And if they be married to any of the sons of the other tribes, the children of Israel, then shall the inheritance be taken from the inheritance of our fathers, and shall be put to the inheritance of the tribe whereunto they are received. So it shall be taken from the lot of our inheritance. Right? So yeah, type of situation where Zelophehad only had daughters, right? So the way we break down nationality, when we teach here in the school or teach at camp, we say, man bears the seed. Think of the plant kingdom. We have the seed, and then think of the woman is like the earth, right? Where you plant a seed in the soil and it gives rise to whatever that root is, whatever that tree is, whatever that plant is, etc. Right? So same way that seeds are always going to be of that plant's always going to be of whatever type of seed they are. That's how nationality works too, right? So if I plant an orange seed different places in the world, right, where the soil will receive it, it's going to be an orange tree. It may not be exactly the same kind of orange tree, but it's going to bear oranges nonetheless. So it's the same way that the Most High made us as nations, right? Where if a man, one nation bears the seed, another woman, it's going to take qualities of that woman as far as her phenotype, as far as her features and things, but still going to be of that father's house. But just looking at that simple concept when it comes to the plant kingdom is an easy way for us to understand this. And I get wrapped around, get our heads, all twisted up when it comes to how you should define nationality now by saying, oh yeah, I'm 1/4 this, I'm 1/8 that, I'm 1/16 this, et cetera, or according to my DNA, I'm 33% this, 45% that, right? Which, as far as the Most High is concerned, all those things really don't matter. What matters is the souls of men and women and what family line you come from, as far as the agreement or the contract that you have with God, or what is allotted to you as far as inheritance. Israel, right? We have an inheritance allotted to us that we can't go against, physical, but also spiritual as well. The other nations have their different plots as well that's been promised to them. And these things are still binding, right? Because we still got the scriptures. So we get into the kingdom. For those that remain after the destruction, I think y'all were talking about it in the Friday class, just past. Those of us that remain, right, the 1/3 of Israel that remains, as well as the remains of the nations, they're all going to go back to where they're supposed to be, to their plots of land that they were supposed to inherit, going back to, right after the flood. So that's how that works. So yeah, we're not plants, but we have similarities, right? Just so we have certain similarities, even the animal kingdom well, but we're not animals. But are there certain ways that we're similar? Sure. Right? So that's how we can oftentimes explain things, by using analogies or comparisons. But yeah, I'll stop there. I just read Numbers 36, and I stopped at 3, but you can read the whole chapter. But this is that same family that's make here, and that these are what do you call it? It's talking about that same family of Manasseh that this man took one of the daughters to wife. So that same tribe, Manasseh, namely of the house of Machir, referring to this particular man's Zelophehad. I think here it just says she was a direct daughter of Machir, so she would have been probably a sister, more than likely, to Zelophehad, but doesn't really say. So not necessarily one of his daughters, but probably a sister of his, or a relative of Zelophehad's in some way or form. But yeah, that family of Machir is mentioned here. So you can link that with verse 21. Just write this down so I don't get behind here. So with 2 and 19, I got Exodus 31, 1-5. So 35, 30 to 33. And then for 1 Chronicles 2 and 21, I just have Numbers 36. I read 1-3, but the whole chapter. But now back in 1 Chronicles 2, I'll read 21 again. And afterward, Hezron went into the daughter of Machir, the father of Gilead, whom he married when he was 80 years old, she bare him Segub. And Segub begat Jair, who had 320 cities in the land of Gilead. Right? See, it's kind of going back. But that Zelophehad came out of the same family, but it's going back to a little bit earlier. But not too much earlier. But just showing that we married into, or the tribe of Judah married into Manasseh, as far as this daughter of Manasseh, by way of Machir. So it says, Segub begat Jair, who had 23 cities in the land of Gilead. So he had a lot of wealth. This Jair. You go into. Now, reading on in verse 23, it reads, and he took Gisha and Aram with the towns of Jair from them, with Kenath and towns thereof, even 80 cities. All these belong to the sons of Machir, the father of Gilead. Right? And then I've got some references here for verse 23. We go back to Numbers also, real quick. Numbers. Let's see. Numbers 32. I'm just going to read the from verse 39 down to 42. It reads, Numbers 32 and 39. It says, and the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, went to Gilead and took it and disposed the Amorite which was in it. So going to how we established the east and west Manasseh, which is a very big plot of land. You look at the old maps of Israel. And Moses gave Gilead unto Machir, the son of Manasseh, and he dwelt therein. And Jair, the son of Manasseh, went and took the small towns thereof, and called them Havoth Jair, right? So he even named it after himself, that we read in Chronicles. And Nobah went and took Kenath and the builders thereof, and called it Nobah after his own name. Yeah. So wants to go into it, so taking over that region and renaming it. But that's to link with 2 and 23. Numbers 32, 39 down to 42 as a reference. And then I got another one for you, and we'll continue on. That was 39 to 42. And then also Deuteronomy chapter 3. Deuteronomy chapter 3, 13, and I'll stop at 15, also going into inheritance that belonged unto Manasseh at this point. This family that this Hezron married into. So Deuteronomy chapter 3, 13, it says, and the rest of Gilead and of all Bashan, being the kingdom of Og, had I unto the half tribe Manasseh, rather gave I unto the half tribe Manasseh, all the region of Argob, with all Bashan, which was called the land of giants. Jair, son of Manasseh, took all the country of Argob unto the coast of Jeshurun, and Maacathai, and called them after his own name, Bashan, Havoth, Jair, unto this day. And I gave Gilead unto Machir. So there it is again. that reference unto Machir. Because remember, you read in the Numbers, Deuteronomy, you read about us taking over the land, or us taking pretty much, was it Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe Manasseh? You read about what we took on that side of Jordan first. And then on the other side of Jordan is kind of where Joshua comes and kind of talks about those battles afterwards. Then you guys read that in the Sabbath service, right? Some months back. But you see that taking place here at the end of the first 5 books of Moses. Those wars. But back to First Chronicles chapter 2. I read that to link with verse 23. If you want one more reference, I won't read it. You could also add Joshua chapter 13. So Joshua chapter 13. '29, you can go all the way down to the end, but you can stop at 31. Joshua 13, 29 to 31. Which does like a recap of those Canaanite kings that we fought against and how Manasseh would be the ones to take that land over, put the names on it, and then make it theirs in that region of Gilead. And then that Machir, that name come up a lot, and having a name amongst Manasseh. As well as this Jair that came after. So Joshua 13, just lost it. Picked up the verses on purpose. 29 to 31. So back to First Chronicles 2. Now in verse 24 it says, and after that, Hezron was dead, and Caleb Ephrath, right? So named after Caleb here, but it also says Ephrath, which was his wife in verse 19. That's where her namesake comes in, exactly. Right, which bears in her, because we're going to get to that too in the future as far as Ephrath and Ephratah, which would become Bethlehem, or I would say in the Hebrew, by Bethlehem, which really means house of bread, right? But that Ephratah is where that region, that's how it got its name first, named after her. And her being an ancestor leading down to this man we read earlier, Bezalel, who I think you read about him when you did the opening, the dedication, about him being cunning, being skilled in all types of cunning work, right? They would be his ancestor. So I think the scholars were right when they said, yeah, you have this Caleb, and you also have the other Caleb, right, who was younger, the one we tend to hear about the most. But then this Caleb obviously being older, since we know that it would look like his great grandson would be contemporaries with the Caleb son of Jephunneh, as opposed to this Caleb. So yeah, sometimes names may come up more than once, but then by looking at the family line, you can easily reconcile and go, oh, okay, it must be talking about someone else. But reading on First Chronicles chapter 2, verse 24, after that Hezron was dead, and Caleb Ephratah, then Abiah, Hezron's wife, bare him Asher, the father of Tekoa, right? And that name comes up too as far as that place. And we read it in 2 Samuel about the wise woman of Tekoa, right? That would be obviously years later from this, but at least we had the name. Okay, more likely this is the name that city was named after, right? That person that pretty much named that city. I'll throw the verse out there real quick because we see As we did it when we established the land according to righteousness, we got the other nations that do it too. So oftentimes we'll read this at camp, but you can just write down Psalms 49 in verse 11. Psalm chapter 49 and verse 11. This going into it from a place of pride, right? Going beyond what your inheritance was, and saying, I'm going to take it upon myself to take everybody's inheritance. But our brother Esau, he didn't know when to stop, right? He had his inheritance that was his. So he didn't actually sitting down, actually brokering with the nation when it was his time. He said, no, I'm going to take all you guys and heap all you guys under me, right? Make you guys all my property. Hell, I'm going to even go a step further and say, don't worry about nationality. Just pay me tribute, and then I'm going to rename you what I see fit. That's what we see happening now. We saw the beginning stages of that happen with the Greeks and Romans, right? Even though they kind of went about it a slightly different way. But we see Esau picking up where the Romans left off in the modern era as their modern names, like the Americans, the British, the French, the Spanish, the Belgians, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Psalms 49 and 11, it reads, their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. See, they'll put their name on it since it's their time to rule. Right? So, yeah, this is Washington, D.C. This is New London. This is New York. This is New Jersey. This is New Orleans. This is New, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Putting the names on all the places. But yeah, back in the First Chronicles 2, just showing that, yeah, we did this also. But even though we took the land by righteous decree, because the Canaanites that were there already, they just fouled the place up. And the Most High said, no, I want this to be your inheritance. So the Most High is really that ultimate decider and determiner when it comes to real estate, right? Not this might makes right practice that we see Esau got going on. First Chronicles 2, now I'm in verse 25. Once again, I read Psalms 40 and 11 just as an indirect reference to 2 and 24. Okay, there we go. Verse 25, and the sons of Jeremiel, the firstborn of Hezron, were Ram, the firstborn, we went to that name meaning like high or exalted, and Bunah, and Oren, and Ozem, and Ahijah. And Jeremiel had also another wife whose name was Atara. She was the mother of Onam. And the sons of Ram, the firstborn of Jeremiel, were Maaz and Jamin and Eker. And the sons of Onam were Shemai and Jada. And the sons of Shemai, Nadab and Abishur. The name of the wife of Abishur was Abihail, and she bare him Alban and Molid. And the sons of Nadab, Seled and Apaim, but Seled died without children. So he had this sometimes, right? Where certain lines continue, but then other lines may stop, right? Just like plants, right? Just like trees, shrubs, right? Where certain branches may continue, other ones may die off or break off. Sometimes an entire root of a tree can become rotted, right? Where the whole thing needs to be pretty much rooted up. If not by us, Most High will do it in time with through the courses of nature, through the seasons. It says, the sons of 31, the sons of Apaim, Ishai, the sons of Ishai, Shishan, and the children of Shishan, Alea, and the sons of Jada, the brother of Shemai, Jether, and Jonathan. And Jether died without children. So we have it there again in the case of Jether, just like we did in the case of Seled back in verse 30. And the sons of Jonathan, Peleth, and Zazah. These were the sons of Jeremiah, right? Always being descendants of this particular Caleb, right? This Jeremiah. I'm sorry, not of Caleb, of Hezron. It says now in 34, now Sheshan had no sons but daughters. So similar to like we referenced earlier, number 36, Zelophehad had his daughters, right? And Sheshan had a servant, an Egyptian, whose name was Jarha. And Sheshan gave his daughter to Jarha, his servant, to wife, and she bare him Ettai. Wow. So check that out. So it says an Egyptian whose name was Jarha. And it says because of him not having any sons, he had a servant, it says an Egyptian, right? Which we could look at this and say, oh, he was an Egyptian, meaning he came from Mount Tazarian, or not necessarily, could have just been maybe in that from that region, but it could have been an Israelite. It's tough to say, to tell us, but we know just as far as the numbers works, Numbers 118, you are what your father is. But this is an example of what you'll see just in general, regardless of nationality, when it comes to inheritance. If you have a servant, sometimes that servant may be someone you may trust, especially if you're like a wealthy person and have like an estate that you need a steward for. Circumstances may have it where this one might be preferred over even your own flesh and blood, your own sons and daughters. I'm thinking about the first Gladiator, right, with the character that Russell Crowe plays, Maximus, versus who was supposed to be Marcus Aurelius and his son Commodus, who really wasn't the upstanding character to give over the reins of rulership to. And the scriptures that talk about that as well. I kind of referenced it earlier, but we might pull these links now before I do. Add a comment.
For those in the watching or in the audience watching and listening to all these names, just so you don't get bored, this is show that it's a plan, the Most High's plan that he has for his kingdom. It will revolve around a specific people, right? Israel, and it's going down the line to show you the plan that he has and always been with this people, right? Then it's gonna go to David, and David is the line of kings, and it's gonna go to the different tribes and to show their position in that kingdom. So that's why it's going into different names and give it this name just to show you specifically the kingdom of the Most High, the plan that he has. We evolve around a specific people, which is Israel. So now it's going down the line, give you a little detail, bit and pieces of information based on that people that he's dealing with in his plan. And regardless of how they go left or right, that's not gonna deter the Most High's plan from coming to fruition.
Come. And when you can connect the dots, or like when it hits close to home, I think that's what actually makes this more interesting, right? When, say, you're talking to grandparents or great grandparents, God willing, they're still alive. You see, Grandpa, Grandma, tell me about so and so. Who was life like for you? Oh well, let me tell you. Back in my day, we used to live here. We used to go to this place. This person was president. This person was in charge. This was the mayor of the city. We moved from here because of the jobs. We had migration, so we went from another city to look for work. So you connect the dots to, oh, these are my people. This is what I was doing. Especially when it's like more immediate. That's when it's like it kind of has your attention. You have like things you touch, like photographs and pictures, where you can say, okay, look, this is a picture that you took back in the 1800s that we dug up, according to the county clerks here in this particular county, or wherever you get the records from. I think that's what really makes it connect. That's what really makes it interesting.
Right.
But since there's a lot of distance from us and these people, even though there's really not that much distance, but it's perceived distance, it's kind of just, like you said, your eyes glaze over. It's just like, they ain't on the page. Okay. Yeah. Okay, fine.
Like we were saying earlier, one would ask, okay, we read in Chronicle, why we go back to Genesis? It's just show you the Most High's plan from the beginning never changed. Always have a specific people, in his kingdom, and he's dealing to that specific people. And then moving forward, is Israel still chosen to be in the kingdom? So he's giving you information about that kingdom and how everything revolves around these people.
Absolutely. Here's a metaphor, right? The Most High is the ultimate husbandman, right? And we're his vineyard, right? So us, the other nations, he's grown us all. So he was there in the beginning. He was planting the seeds for all us as people, and the other nations too. We're reading about some branches continue on, some die off, but all in all, he's the one that's gardening, planting, watering, right? Plucking roots out, planting new seeds, right? Keeping the whole garden going. Like I said, whether it's us or the other nations, he's the one responsible for all of it. You know, another way to visualize what kind of share with us. Most High is the ultimate gardener. So where do we leave off? About this Jarrah the Egyptian, right? So it says the Sheshan, who didn't have any sons, had a servant, an Egyptian, whose name was Jarrah. From, like I said, just from the way it looks, oh yeah, he's from Mount Zarin. But we know, being an Egyptian, even you look at the Hebrew, it referred to not just the people, but also referred to the place as well. You coming from that place. Which, you know, Egypt had many nationalities there since they were the dominant government. But reading on, it says in 35, and Sheshan gave his daughter to Jarrah, his servant, to wife. She bare him Attai, and Attai begat Nathan, and Nathan begat Zabad, and Zabad begat Ephlau, and Ephlau begat Obed, Obed begat Jehu, and Jehu begat Azariah, Azariah begat Helez, and Helez begat Eli, Eliasah, and Eliasah begat Sisamai, and Sisamai begat Shalom, and Shalom begat Jechamiah, and Jechamiah begat Elisha. Right? So this whole family line coming from pretty much Sheshan, to Sheshan's daughter and this Jarrah. But just to link with 34, I just want to read this verse. I was kind of referring to it earlier. Proverbs. Real quick, if you get Proverbs. See, even Abraham kind of fell into this at a certain point, right? We'll get that verse 2 just to go into that. Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 2, where it reads, a wise servant shall have rule over a son that causeth shame, and shall have a part of the inheritance among the brethren. Right? So under certain circumstances, we know ideally it's going to go to the son if you have sons, but if you don't have sons, then, you know, who's best? Then what? Someone that you actually have trust in, that you can actually confide in to handle your affairs. And in this case, even to wife one of you to be a husband to one of your daughters, because you know, okay, we've labored, you've been an asset to me, you hook me up. Yeah, I trust that you'll take care of my daughter as a wife, even though you may not be my flesh and blood. So you have those scenarios, right? I'm thinking about Eliezer, not Eleazar, but Eliezer. Let me get that example real quick, because that was a situation with Abraham and Sarah, right? Initially. Let me go back real quick to Genesis. Genesis, let's get the one. Genesis chapter 15. He would be the one that he's a wise and faithful servant nonetheless. but he wasn't of Abraham's house, right? But he would actually have him be the one to actually go and have him find a wife of his kindred for his son Isaac when he would be blessed with them later. But this was Abraham's concern initially before he had any heir, even before he had Hagar, right, the Egyptian handmaid, to give birth when Sarai couldn't, right? But look at his concern here. Genesis 15, it says in verse 1, after these things, the word of Yahweh came unto Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram, I am thy shield, thy exceeding great reward. And it says in verse 2, and Abram said, Lord power, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus. See? He's in a similar situation where it's like, not only do I have, like, he didn't even have daughters. He didn't have sons or daughters in his case at this time. And he said, all I have is this Eliezer of Damascus. Yeah, he's my steward. He does his job well, but he's not of my house, my kindred, right? Because Damascus was the capital of Syria. And Abram said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. See that? And as you read on, you see the Most High is going to actually work things out where he's going to actually have one that can succeed him, that comes from his loins. Initially through his handmaid, Hagar, but then also through his wife, Sarai, who will become Sarah, right? But just to show that dynamic was there as far as the having an inheritance, somebody to carry on your posterity. So that was Genesis 15. I just read from 1 to 3, but you go down, it goes more into how the Most High knew his concerns and had it taken care of. Like you said earlier, Khan, right? The Most High already had it mapped out, even though for us, kind of being in the midst of the story, all we know is what we know and what we can see. It's just like, how's it supposed to work out, you know? What am I going to do? So back in First Chronicles 2, I'm in verse 42 now. First Chronicles 2 and 42, it reads, that the sons of Caleb, the brother of Jeremiel, were Mesha, his firstborn, which was the father of Ziph, and the sons of Marisha, the father of Hebron, right? The Hebron, another place, kind of like Tekoa. Tekoa being a name of a Judah, we read back in verse 24. Hebron being another name of a man, but then that'll be named after a city as well, right? Hebron being a chief city in Judah, which you go into Hebron, there's a lot of history there, right? Verse 43, it says, and the sons of Hebron, Korah, and Tepuah, and Rechem, and Shema. And Shema begat Raham, the father of Jeroboam. And Rechem begat Shemai. And the sons of Shemai was Maon. And Maon was the father of Bethzer. And Ephah, Caleb's concubine, bare Haran and Moza and Gazez, and Haran begat Gazez. So looks like Haran named his son after his brother, right? I guess they must have been pretty close, huh? I'm assuming, I'm not saying for sure. 47, and the sons of Jediah, Regem, and Jotham, and Gishon, and Pelet, and Ephah, and Sheab. Like I was saying before, right? Like you mentioned earlier, right? If you have like faces, if this is like your immediate family, it makes it a little bit more palpable, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I seen so and so, or I heard stories about so and so, or I have records I'm reading about with this, what they actually did, or I got photographs from like the early 20th century or the 19th century, right? Someone's maybe able to dig up photos from back then, so that's what makes it a little bit more palpable, whereas opposed to this kind of. Okay. So and so begat so and so begat so and so begat so and so, you know. All right, time for bed. You know, I'm getting sleepy. We're reading on in verse 48. It says, Maacah, Caleb's concubine, bare Sheber in Cherneah. These were people, flesh and blood, right? like individuals who had, pet peeves, certain ways about them, right? Certain manner about them, right? And sometimes the scriptures may not give us that detail about certain folks. Other ones it does, where it helps us kind of in our mind kind of picture it, like, oh wow, okay, he was this kind of person, or she had this way about her. Okay, it makes it a little more interesting. Whereas kind of reading it like this, you have to kind of fill in the blank sometimes. They go, all right, what's going on with these people?
It's kind of like that remind me of the scripture that says, "What is man that you regard him so much, right? That's the Most High. The Most High regard his people because he got a plan for them. Right? You might say, man, I'm nothing, but in the Most High's plan, you right here, you part of the plan. But being here, you feel, especially we're not in our kingdom, we feel like I'm just a regular guy. But in the Most High's plan, everything is meticulously planned from one person to the next one person. That's why you don't want to miss out on anything. You just point out this person here, that person here. You may think it's insignificant, but to the Most High, it means a lot because that's his plan.
And keep in mind, y'all, because we're talking about this at the feast. It's like there's a concerted effort for Esau to abolish things the Most High wants. Right? You do a little research, you find out, with these Illuminati powers that be, right? They want to do a lot of things that go against the Most High's will. They want to pretty much create their own version of the kingdom, right? And one of the things you hear about them wanting to abolish is what? Not only private property rights and all rights of inheritance, but also family relations, right? So I just named two of those, right? All rights of inheritance and to abolish family relations. We can see just different things. You might say, okay, that's a conspiracy, but look at the where the culture is going, especially in the West, where we're being pushed to say, oh, it doesn't matter what color you are, it's all about interracial and this, that, and the third. You see it all over the place when it comes to books, movies, music, television, right? Interracial, and it doesn't matter what family line you came from. That's stuff our grandparents worried about, but we can easily forget the wisdom behind that as far as keeping things in house, keeping things within the family, within the nation, and recognizing why nationality is important. Hence, it's a milk topic for us, right? It's part of the milk that we start off with. We oftentimes to spend a whole camp just talking about nationality, right? It's always going to come up. Well, usually 9 times out of 10 is going to come up in any given camp that you see out there. But just how important is that, and how that thing ties into, or it's like the foundation upon which so many other things are laid, right? But it's in the prophecy. Remember what Daniel said when he saw the vision of the statue depicting the government he was in, leading to the government even that we're in right now, and the government that's still to come. When it talks about the iron and clay feet that represented in that statue, representing the time we're in right now. It says that they shall mingle themselves with seed of men, yet they will not cleave together, as iron and clay don't mix, right? But just talking about that whole melting pot mentality being pushed in modern day Babylon, that's prophesied in the scriptures, right? So it's when we read it in the scriptures, it's prophecy, or when we find out through researching when it comes to the powers that be and the top families, whether it be talking about the guys that we read earlier, they got the names and everything, like the Rockefellers or the DuPonts or the Carnegies or the Vanderbilts, et cetera, right? These captains of industry, right? This small handful of families, if they're all from Esau, and what they want to do, we see just from observation, just reading and making sense of the prophecy. We can pretty much sort out the research and go, okay, I can see this holds up. This here, I don't know, maybe, but this here actually holds up. But we see definitely those things in particular as far as them trying to abolish family relations by pushing LGBTQIA culturally, and then trying to abandon all rights of inheritance. That we see in these big meetings they have at these places like Davos, Switzerland, right? Because they keep having to rebrand themselves because even their own people expose them. Oh, they got their Bilderberg meeting at their top richest, the top 100 companies or British people meeting in secret to discuss the plans for the future. Let's break in and find out what they're talking about, right? Even in like their promotional videos, they're talking about stuff, you'll own nothing and be happy, right? So you see it even in their doctrine they try to push on the people, right? They're putting this thing out here in the open. and selling it to us as though it's the way to go, right? And for us, they're none the wiser. They don't know the importance of nationality, importance of inheritance based on the scriptures. We'll fall right for it. We'll fall right for the trick. Like I said, that's its own topic, but just want to make that point since we're talking about Chronicles. And the why behind why we had this, and, in the scriptures, is important, whether it be explicitly stated or like we're talking about now, more implicit or applied. So I left off in 1 Chronicles 2, and then 48. I'll read it again. It says, "And Maacah, Caleb's concubine, bare Shebar and Terhana. And she bare also Sheaf, the father of Madman. It's fine. First part of the name is Madman. Then the last part is Manna, like food from the Most High. That's a funny name, Manna. At least the way it sounds in English. Sheba, the father of Macbena, and the father of Gibeah, and the daughter of Caleb, was Aksa. Now it says, these were the sons of Caleb, the son of the firstborn of Ephratah, right? Or like Ephrath, we read above. It says, Shobal, the father of Kirjath Jearim. Remember that Kirjath, that's like when we say Har. I think in the Hebrew, Har just means like a city or a town. But Kirjath is also another name. I think it's taken from the Canaanite, but it's a Hebrew way of pronouncing another name for city. Anytime you say Kirjath and then followed by something else, it pretty much means the city of, and then whoever follows after. So if I'm not mistaken, the Kirjath Jearim is like the city of Jair, or those that come from Jair. Just like you have Kirjath Arba. Read about that in Joshua and Judges as well. A city that Caleb would take, but the other Caleb, Kirjath Arba being the city of Arba, who was a giant, and you read about him, right? A mighty man that Caleb took out, right? Just to show forth his faith and fidelity, like him and Joshua, out of his generation. And because of that, he was given a lion's share of inheritance in Judah.
Kind of like we read, right? And when the scripture says, when we teach the Lord, those who will be called great in the kingdom of heaven,
Mm-hmm.
those names that we're reading right here, those are people that the Most High reserved. Now their name is being mentioned here that we're reading about. So that those are people who kept the laws and do their best to keep the laws. So the Most High reserved those. Now we're reading about them, their families, right? In this book right here.
Absolutely. So let's go into the sons of those that came from right? We read about Uri above, right? But now we're going into other children that this had, right? This Shobal, the father of Kirjath Jearim. It says in 51, Selma, the father of Bethlehem, right? Which remember Bethlehem is same place as Ephrath, right? We read up scriptures. Harep, the father of Bethgader, and Shobal, the father of Kirjath Jearim, had sons. Heroed and Hab of the Manahethites, and the families of Kirjath Jearim, the Ithrites, and the Puhites, and the Shumathites, and the Mishrites. Of them came the Zareathites and the Eshtaulites. That's tied to that place, Eshtaol, I'm reading about too. 54, the sons of Salma, Bethlehem, and the Netophathites, Ataroth, the house of Joab, and half of the Manahethites, the Zorites, and the families of the scribes which dwelt at Jabez, the Tirathites, which I think this Jabez, I'm not sure if it's the same Jabez, but it's going to be a Jabez that comes up in chapter 4, which we're not going to read today, but the Tirathites, the Shemethites and the Sukathites. These are the Kenites that came of Hamath, the father of the house of Rechab. Right? So Kenites, I think we see them mentioned also. You look up 2 and 55. Real quick, you just write it down. Judges. Wrong way. Judges chapter 1. Yeah, so Judges chapter 1 and then 16, but you could also link this with Judges chapter 4 and verse 11 as well. So Judges 1 and 16. Which links with Judges 4, 11. And also goes down to verse 17. Judges 1:16 and Judges 4:11 and also verse 17 go into these Kenites and then this Hobab, the children of Hobab, or also this man named Eber the Kenite. It's kind of going into more history about those people.
The Kenite is the name of the place, right? Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Kind of like Christ was called a Nazarene, right? Because he was raised in Nazareth
Mm-hmm.
in Matthew 2 and 23. So he shall be called a Nazarene. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think that's John 1:47.
right. Let me read that real quick. It says, and he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, he shall be called a Nazarene. That's
What
what
is-
I see.
Could you pull that? Sorry.
That's a Matthew 2:23. See, he was a Nazarene, man. But he's an Israelite by birthright, by nationality, but by the place where he grew up, they call him a Nazarene. But he was born in Bethlehem, but grew up in Nazareth after he returned from Egypt.
Exactly. So it's getting that verse down. So we got 34 Proverbs. No. 17 to Genesis 15, 1, 3, 54, verse 55. We've got Judges 1 and 16. And Judges 4, 11 and 17. And then we've got Matthew 2 and 23, right? All caught up. Let me get you behind there. Okay, so let's get into First Chronicles chapter 3 now, going into the line of David, or you'll see it referred to in some Bibles, or like Bibles that little headings that say the Davidic line of kings, right? But now this is the line of kings, but it's also going to just go into his line in general, right? Because all the house of David didn't become kings, right? But the house continues on, nonetheless. So now in First Chronicles chapter 3, in verse 1, it reads, "Now these were the sons of David which were born unto him in Hebron. The firstborn, Amnon of Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess. The second, Daniel," and sometimes you'll see it as looks like Chaleb or Caleb in the mid caption, "of Abigail the Carmelitess," right? But you go back to First Samuel's. Remember we read this and read about them in particular detail, especially in the case of Abigail the Carmelitess, right? Who was the wife of Nabal, who David and Nabal had a heading off or a face off, right, between the two of them, right? He was going to run from Saul, but then he came to him peaceably. But then Nabal, as his namesake said, dealt with him churlishly, right, and coarsely with him. And David almost retaliated, but the Most High pretty much handled that judgment when it came to Nabal and what he had to face. And then after he took him out, Abigail became a widow, but then ended up marrying David afterwards. That's kind of just a brief, too long didn't read version of that story, but I know we went into that in detail. We were going to Samuel's some months ago, right? It's talking about pretty much that same family. And then Amnon, earlier on in this, of Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, we got a story with him too. It happened a little bit later in the story of Samuel's, where he pretty much fell sick in love with his sister, another one of David's daughters, named Tamar, right? Ironically, the same name for Judah's daughter-in-law, right? But obviously generations apart. She had that same name. And then what transpired with that, and what that led to as far as him forcing her, raping her pretty much, and then him putting her away, shortly afterwards, right? And she was a virgin, and she even tried to tell him, "Look, this is foolish. Like, this foolish this foul should not be done in Israel. Like, don't do this, right? And now you put me away afterwards is like." It's like, what's worse? What you did before, now you're putting me away even afterwards. So, that was a situation. And then, David hearing about it, and then I guess him having mixed feelings about it as far as how to have to deal with it. But then his other son, Absalom, deciding over a certain period of time to kind of take matters to his own hands by dealing with Amnon directly. As Amnon wasn't judged right then and there for what he did. Like I said, that's kind of its own story too. Not to go into all that, but that's where the history behind some of these names we're reading about here. But as far as just the list of his kids going down to, I think we read down to about verse 4, you can just write down 2 Samuel chapter 3. Second Samuel chapter 3, verses 2 to 5. As far as the children born to David in Hebron, you can link those up with 3 and 1. So First Chronicles 3 and 1, you can link up with 2 Samuel 3, verses 2 down to 5.
So in the span of
Good, you got it. Say it.
you didn't read that yet, so let me mention. Because he said he fought there for 7 years and 6 months, right?
Come.
So he was there 7 years and 6.
Oh, I see what you're getting at. No, I think I don't know about that. I know what you're talking about. I think it says he reigned there because remember he became rule over all Israel later.
Right.
But as far as him taking the wives from the year, but as far as the kids, maybe not. I think the 7.5 years is pretty much him reigning in Hebron before, like you read in later on in chapter 5, when verses 1 to 3.
Right.
That's when he become ruler over all Israel. As far as his kids all being born in the 7 years, doesn't it say?
Yeah, in the same spot.
I know what you're getting at. You said, boy, putting in work over 7 years. Mm-hmm. Think about Jacob, working 7 years for Rachel, You say, man, okay. That's left for you. This is the year went by, right? It went super quick, right? Because him and Rachel were a thing, And of course, he got to know Leah and the other handmaids, but it's just like, Laban. He's a tricky Uncle Laban, but that's another story. But yeah, 2 Samuel 3, 2 to 5, to link with 3 and 1 of First Chronicles. But let's go back.
He had 6 sons. And the bond. Yeah.
So First Chronicles 3 and verse 2 now reads, the third, Absalom, which I was talking about earlier, right? We want to avenge his sister Tamar. I think him and his sister had the same mother. But then he took out Amnon, who was his brother, but through David, but they had different moms, right? Because Amnon's mom was Ahinoam. So this is the third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. It says, the fourth, Adonijah, the son of Haggith. Now Adonijah, he's another story, right? We go into him, especially in at the end of 2 Samuel, being in 1 Kings, right? Because right around the time when David was, old and stricken in years, it was time to hand off the kingdom to set Solomon up. Adonijah took it upon himself to say, yeah, I'm the one that's king. Had this big parade and things like that, this big procession. And then Bathsheba had to get to Solomon and say, listen, this is what's going on. If I want you to be king, here's what we're going to do. And, David gave Solomon all of the housekeeping to take care of, going back to Joab, we touched on earlier, and going into even what had to happen with Adonijah too. I think this talks about Adonijah asking David to I can just say David's last wife, but I think her name was Abishag. But it says he didn't know her, but it says she kept him warm since his body couldn't keep heat as an old man. So they pretty much had her like laying in bed with him as an old man. And then Adonijah asked for her hand in marriage, but it's just like, Okay, of all the women, you have to ask her. It's just bad among other things. Him trying to be king next was meant for Solomon. Just a lot of drama. But all in all, you read Second Kings chapter 1, it got resolved as you read it. Thinking about Joab, oh man, may his life be weighed in the balance because he did a lot of great for Israel, right? When it came to wars and battles and conquests, right? Establishing us as having a hand in establishing us as that was like our golden age pretty much. That was when we as a people were the dominant rulership, which seems like a distant memory, right? You tell people like, well, you so-called blacks, they call yourself the Jews. When were you guys ever in charge? It's like, well, about 3,000 years ago. People look at you like, 3,000 years ago? Like, what's been going on, man? What happened since then? This is like, well, a couple things. Let's go through it. Let me count the ways, right? Let's go through Kings and talk about, our ups and downs and downs and ups and downs and downs and downs and downs, ups and downs and more downs. But yeah, about 3,000 years ago, we were those people, But Joab had to help to set the stage for that. But with that, he had his flaws, like we mentioned, the bloodthirstiness, right? A little bit, little bit of like, okay, yeah, nothing wrong with wanting justice for your brother's death, but it's just like, oh man. And then you plotting against Amasa, this other person. All these things that we read in 2 Kings 1, David tells Solomon, look, you got to take care of this, right? This is the unfinished business they need to handle so that when you take over the reins of rulership, things can go smooth. Now, make sure you do what you're supposed to do, which that's another story about what Solomon would do later on, unfortunately. But just talking about the transition between David and Solomon, it was quite an ordeal. He had a couple of things that had to happen. But yeah, these names are connected to this. But yeah, Joab holding on to those horns at the altar of burnt offering. Because whoever touches the altar is holy, right? So he said, "Yeah, I want to hold on here because I know the judgment is coming. As long as I touch this altar, you can't kill me." So they said, "Okay, you can't hold on forever. You can't escape the Most High judgment forever." But yeah, all this goes into the house of David and all the things you read about concerning him and his children and those that will come after him as far as the rulership, these different sons. But now read on in verse 3, it says, in the 5th, Shephatiah of Abital, the 6th, Ithream by Eglah his wife. These 6 were born unto him in Hebron, and there he reigned 7 years and 6 months, which you can just link this this verse 4, 3 and 4. With 2 Samuel. Chapter 2. Yeah, I mean to speak to your what you said, yeah, 7 years, yeah. I mean, you can have seeds planted every day, right? Especially working in the field. So, how much more when it comes to the fruit of thy loins, right?
Probably will be eating a lot of pomegranates. The fruit of fertility.
Yeah, the fruit of thy body, right? That's fun. Yeah, man. He's doing the Lord's work. That's what you say. Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, right? But it tells you, when he perceived that he was king, that's when he said, okay. But before that, it was like, okay, make sure everything's in place first. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind too. But we're gonna get 2 Samuel chapter 2. My turn. 2 Samuel chapter 2. In verse 11. It tells that he reigned in Hebron for 7 years and 6 months, or 7.5 years. But now, reading on, just get some. So now for the second part of verse 4, where it mentions, and in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years, right? That's 2 Samuel. You can write down chapter 5, verses 4 and 5. Kind of exactly. So 2 Samuel 2 and 11, also 2 Samuel chapter 5, verses 4 and 5.
Aside from the names that we go back in Genesis, you're gonna see Chronicle revolves around first Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 King, 2 King, for the most part.
This is true. This is true. But I think so far well, the first couple sections of Chronicles are kind of going to do more of the legwork when it comes to different tribes. Right now we're talking about Judah. We got to go into the other tribes as well, right? We talk about their families and what they were done for, right? And you got to go into Levi too. We haven't talked about Levi yet, so that's going to be a big portion too as we go through the Chronicles. And then, like you said, towards the end of when we get into the teens of Chronicles, that's when we get to more into the Samuels. Around 10 and 11, we'll go into Samuel time. Even a little bit before that, but yeah, before we get there, we got to go into the other families. So it's weird. So it's going forward in time. So that's most focusing on when it's focusing on who, kind of going to the family, the next family, and then it's going to go more into okay, not so much the who we're talking about, but then when are we talking about? But the first part, I guess, has to cover the who, gets the who out of the way first with a lower level of detail. So now back in 1 Chronicles 3, now we're in verse 5. And we just got links for 3 and 1, which was 2 Samuel 3, 2 to 5. Also for verse 4, we got 2 Samuel chapter 2, verse 11. Also, we read or quoted chapter 5, verses 4 and 5. Now back in the 1 Chronicles chapter 3. Now I'm in verse 5 where it reads, these were born unto him in Jerusalem, Shemaiah and Shobab and Nathan and Solomon, 4 of Bathsheba, the daughter of Amiel, right? Which I think his name is also spelled Eliam. You can see it other places. Read on to verse 6. It says, Ibhar also and Elishama and Eliphalet and Noga and Nepheg and Japiah and Elishama and Eliada and Eliphalet, 9, right? Those last 3 are funny. All the names start with God, right? God has something. God is something. Like Eli, right? So it says now together. So now this is also in 2 Samuel 5, but this line goes down to it's also chapter 5. So from 5 down to 8 of 1 Chronicles 3. You could link that with 2 Samuel 5. Second Samuel 5, verse. I'm the first Samuel. Second Samuel 5, 13. Down to 16. There we go. So 2 Samuel 5, 13 and 16 to go into those children he bare while in Jerusalem.
Solomon got it from David, right? Solomon. David is no joke, you know. He got other kids too. Inside there, he had other sons.
Life of the wealthy, right? The rich in resources, both physical and spiritual, right? So in 1 Chronicles chapter 3, I'm going to read verse 9 also. It says, these are all the sons of David, besides the sons of the concubines, and Tamar, their sister, right? Which I kind of referred to her earlier back in 2 Samuel, the 13th chapter. You know, her sad story with her and Amnon, the oldest of the boys, right? The one who fell in love with his own sister, which we know is incest against the law. The law says you're supposed to uncover the nakedness of your near kin, right? And he said he had a friend that was very subtle of speech, right? They gave him a nice wicked idea. He said, "Oh, just do this. Just pretend like you're sick and have her, make some food for you, right? Like while you're sick. Just do that. That way you can get her alone." It's just like, if anything, like that's not the advice you want to hear. You got this problem. Anything, you need to go and repent. It's like I should not be looking at my own flesh and blood this way, right? Flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone, right? But yeah, back at 1 Chronicles chapter 3 and verse 10. 1 Chronicles chapter 3 and verse 10, it says, and Solomon's sons, kind of jumps forward, because remember, when you read about in the law, in Kings, Solomon was the one to pretty much carry on the reign from David. Amidst all his sons that he had, Solomon would be the one to carry on the reigns from forward. His, forget which number son he was. He was the fourth born in Jerusalem, you know that much, as far as sequence-wise. Perhaps the eighth, it's hard to say, but it says Shimei, Shobab, and Nathan, and Solomon. But either way, he'll be the one to carry on that reign amidst all the sons. Because we know Solomon had many sons as well and daughters, but only mentioned certain ones. But that we know his son Rehoboam, he would be the one to carry on the reign of the line of. He would be the one to pretty much sit on the throne after Solomon, because remember here from 10 on down, so it's going to get really specific into not so much all the sons each of these kings had that come out of David and Solomon, but more so who will be the next ruler after each sequence. So Rehoboam, we read about back in 1 Kings 11, right? When we first got into the split kingdom. To take place after Solomon's time, because the prophet told Solomon, for David's, your father's sake, I won't take it from you, but from your son, I'll take it. And that would be Rehoboam. Right. Which you read about Rehoboam, and you were laughing earlier about David and Solomon. Rehoboam was chip off the old block too, right? He was a husbandman as well, right? As far as, not so much the planting in that way. Yeah. I think this is even the scripture talks about it, which we'll probably get to again. We get the Chronicles where it says he loved many wives. like certain judges we read about before. But it says, and Solomon's son was Rehoboam, Abiah his son, Asa his son. Abiah you also see it spelled as Abijah or Abijam. Asa his son, we read by him as a king. Josaphat his son, read by him. He was one who was a king during the same time as Ahab in the north, right? King Ahab in the north. Joram his son, Ahaziah his son, Joash his son. I think it was actually the youngest crowned king next to Josiah, Joash. Amaziah his son, Azariah his son, Jotham his son, Ahaz his son. There's a certain point there also in that setup after Josaphat where you had we intermarried with the house of Ahab. So I think Athaliah came from that family of Ahab. We went into that family line before. So we kind of had like the intermarrying between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom family lines, at least for a certain while, and then that kind of became explosive with Athaliah, wanting to kill young Joash and get rid of the line of David pretty much before, which that couldn't happen. But yeah, we'll go through that again when we go through Chronicles. Reading on, it says, where did I leave off? I'll just start from 12. Amaziah his son, Azariah his son, Jotham his son, Ahaz his son, Hezekiah his son, right, which we know about Hezekiah, him being one of the three righteous kings mentioned, right? When you read in Ecclesiasticus, was it 49, I think, and 5, down to 6, where it talks about all except David, Hezekiah, and Josiah were defective. It says, Manasseh, his son, which we have his own prayer in the Apocrypha, right, where he went way off. We read about him in the Kings and Chronicles, offering his kids to the fire and dealing with all types of idols and promoting all types of wickedness. But then even he repented at the end and found some favor with the Lord, right, as far as mercy. He was taken captive. This was before the nation was taken captive. Just he as a king was taken captive for all wickedness. Ammon, his son, who wasn't much to write about. Josiah, his son, was very much to write about as far as him being righteous. So Hezekiah and Josiah, right, being our two righteous kings along with David that I mentioned. The verse we're talking about, once again, you just write it down. But this is Ecclesiasticus 49. Ecclesiasticus, which comes after Wisdom of Solomon. Ecclesiasticus 49. I said 5. It's actually 4 and 5. Ecclesiastes 49, 4 and 5. It says, all except David and Ezekias, the same as Hezekiah, and Josiah, same as Josiah, were defective, for they forsook the law of the Most High. Even the kings of Judah failed. Therefore, they gave their power unto others and their glory to a strange nation. Yeah. So the kings of Judah as a whole failed, right? And those two are being made mention as being righteous. Like we touched on before, some of those other kings were righteous, but then they weren't wholly righteous to it. They might have been righteous themselves, but then they didn't enforce righteousness on the people. You'll read about, oh, he did right before he did that, which was right in the sight of God, but they might have left the high places up, right? Where people dealt with idolatry, they still allowed them to do that. Whereas Hezekiah and Josiah, along with David, they were righteous themselves, but they made sure that people were righteous too, right? They didn't accept any wicked idolatry, any wicked behavior like that. So yeah, 4 and 5 Ecclesiastes. I guess you can link it with 13 and 14 of 1 Chronicles 3. So now we're getting into the time period of the Babylonian captivity, which we read about in 2 Kings 25, right? It says, and the sons of Josiah were the firstborn. It says Johanan, or in the side cap you might have in your Bible, Jehoahaz, right? The second, Jehoiakim, right? And the side caption says Eliakim. I think in the King it says Joachim, spells it that way. The third, Zedekiah. The fourth, Shalom, right? And this Zedekiah being the last and final king, right, that we had for at least a certain period of time. It wasn't righteous, unfortunately, which was the last king we had seated in Judah, in Jerusalem, before the Babylonians came in, just totally just destroyed the place. But they had taken those other ones captive too. When you read the story, we read in 2 Kings, which we'll revisit when we go through 2 Chronicles too. But now it says in verse 16, and the sons of Jehoiakim, Jeconiah, his son, Zedekiah, his son. He had a son named Zedekiah too. I guess like after his, I think Zedekiah and Jehoiakim, I don't think they were sons. I don't think it was a father's son. I think they were brothers. Because during that time period of Josiah, it was kind of, it was really hectic, where we had the king kind of being swept around and replaced one with another. But he named his son Zedekiah. Reading 1 in 17, it says, and the sons of Jeconiah, right? Going back to Joachim's son Jeconiah now. Esther, it says Salathia, which we'll also see spelled Shealtiel when we read in other scriptures. His son, it says in verse 18, Malkaram also, and Pedaiah, and Shenazar, and Jechemiah, Hoshama, and Nedabiah. And the sons of Pedaiah were Zerubbabel and Shimei, the sons of Zerubbabel, Meshullam, Hananiah, and Shelomith, their sister. Right? So, like I was saying earlier, when you see sometimes in the scripture when it says the son of, wouldn't it be mindful? Because sometimes it may be referring to your immediate father, sometimes it might be referring to when you may have come from. We saw it even going back to Genesis, right? Where it talks about, the children of Haran, where it might have been talking about a parent or a grandparent, also might have been talking about a place. Because remember in the Hebrew, you talk about sons and daughters, and then fathers and mothers. It could be your immediate. It could also mean an ancestor going back to a degree you may not know, or going back to a degree you may not be specified, but let you know that they were an ancestor of that person. Right? Think of a tree, think of a branch, right? The branch may branch off in many directions, but you go back far enough to say, oh yeah, you have a root. You guys share a common root to this person. Right? Because what you'll see is when this Salathiel is being mentioned and it's spelled Shealtiel, it's the way that it's spelled. I should say it'll say that Zerubbabel was the son of Shealtiel, but here you'll see, oh, it's got Pedaiah in between. So he's still a Shealtiel's son. It's just here we have Pedaiah mentioned as an extra degree within the lineage. That's all. But to connect with 3 and 19, actually with 3 and 17 as far as Salathiel. Now we're going to the times of Ezra and Nehemiah, or the time of the exile, right? Which again we'll go, we're going to get into this when we finish Chronicles, right? We'll go into it in more detail. But let's get as a link for verse 17, Ezra. Ezra chapter 3 and verse 2. Ezra 3 and 2 reads, then stood up Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, and his brethren, the priests, and Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and his brethren, and build the altar of the God of Israel to offer burnt offerings thereon, as written in the law of Moses, the man of God. So this first wave of exiles came back to rebuild what was destroyed, right? After they came out of the Medo-Persian captivity, which was Once it got rolled into that captivity after the Babylonians ended up falling down. So this was part of that first wave that came back to rebuild. But see here we have a lineage, a representative from each line, right? You have this Jeshua or Joshua, in the Hebrew would be Yahushua, son of Josedek. He was representative of the house of Aaron, right, which was the holy line of priests coming from Moses' brother. And you also have a representative from the line of David, this Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, the same Salathiel reading here at 1 Chronicles 3 and 17, right? So with all the 12 tribes, you always had those two bloodlines in particular that were always reckoned, right? One that would produce the line of priests, the other that would produce the line of kings. Now, based on what the Holy Spirit has shown us, we can pinpoint who Judah, Benjamin, and Levi are today. But as far as which families we come out of, we really can't tell, right? If you're the tribe of Judah or the tribe of Levi, can you say whether or not you're the house of Aaron or the house of David? No. Right? Do you know for sure? No. But when Christ comes back, he'll sort all that out. If anything, just follow righteousness, right? Do the best you can with the Most High has allotted you. And like Paul tells us in his letter to the church in Corinth, covet ye earnestly the best gifts, right? Especially the gifts to keep on giving, like the truth. And all things that the truth can give us when it comes to spiritual gifts. Because in time, whether it was this life or lives we had before, we'll show forth whoever we were. Because who we were is who we are. That sounds kind of weird, but it's true. That's why when Elijah came as John, same spirit but different man, we see he was righteous both times, right? Both did righteous works in the time they lived on the earth, right? Even Christ spoke highly of him, right? When it came to those born of women, right? So it wasn't a thing like, oh, who was I before? Even when he was asked that, he said, no, I'm not who you say. I'm not Elias. He didn't remember. But he was that spirit of Elias, and he was still going to be that righteous spirit when he came to this time. So if we were righteous before, we're going to be righteous during these times too, right? If we were, halfway in, halfway out, then it's going to be the same thing now, right? We might have the time and the truth, but we were called but weren't chosen. So Most High Christ and the angels know. But in the end, it won't really matter because the way we live our life, however many days the Most High bless us with, that's going to determine just who exactly that we are. But along with Ezra 3 and 2, you could also write down Ezra 5 and 2, where it pretty much mentions the same thing. And then the prophet Haggai, who was contemporary with them as well. You can write down chapter 1. I think it's verse 1. Let me just make sure. The prophet Haggai, right before Zechariah, right after Zephaniah. Yeah, it mentions it here too. Haggai chapter 1 and in verse 1. So link those to 3 and 17. All right. Continuing on, verse 20. And Heshubah, I'm back in 1 Chronicles 3, now I'm in verse 20. And Heshubah and Ohel and Berechiah and Hasadiah, Jushab Hesed, I guess that's Yahushab Chasad, something like that. 5. The sons of Hananiah, Pelatiah, and Jeshiah, the sons of Raphiah, the sons of Arnon, the sons of Obadiah, the sons of Shechaniah, the sons of Shechaniah, Shemaiah, and the sons of Shemaiah, Hattush, and Igiel, and Bariah, and Neariah, and Shaphat, 6. So this is all going into the time after the Medo-Persian captivity. That's going back into the land, building things back up, leading even down to the times of the Maccabees, right? Not sure we got to that point just yet, but just showing those children that will come afterwards, right? If we're just looking at generation-wise from like the 6th century BC, because when Zerubbabel and Jeshua came back, and then when Ezra Nehemiah came back, it was the 6th century, or like the early 500s BC. And it went into the 400s, which is like getting into the same time frame as like Esther and Mordecai, right? With the Medo-Persians still being the predominant empire leading up into the time of the Greeks. So just kind of picture when these begats are happening. Think of between the 500s and the 400s BC. It says the sons of Neariah, Elioenai, and Hezekiah. So Hezekiah's name came back. And Azrikam, 3. And the sons of Elioenai were Hodiah and Eliashib and Peliah and Akub and Johanan and Deliah and Anani, or Anani, 7. So we look at the line going all the way down to Christ, right? We read about it in Matthew chapter 1 and Luke chapter 3, right? We had that specific line, but now the line of David wasn't just that line, right? So he had the line of David going to many different branches, but you have a specific family that's going to lead up into Christ, right? But you're showing just how much that root spread out even on its own, to where, like I said, it's tough to say of all Judah that's out there now, who that line of David would be and where would they be, right? They could be anywhere, all over, right? At this point, along with the families of Judah. Right, because when we're talking about the branches on a tree, we're talking exponential growth, right? Depending on how many branches a branch can yield, as far as smaller branches, or like a vine in a vineyard, right? So we're talking exponential growth. So you might see a family, you might just see a family or say, oh look, Jacob and 70 souls. It's like a small, little community. But just in a little over 400 years, look how big we got, right? So exponential growth is a thing, it can happen in a relatively short period of time. So people talk about, oh my God, flood and Noah, there's only 8 people. You have all the people after that. It's like, yeah, it's very possible. You talk about exponential growth, you do the math. It won't take that long either.
Let me read Matthew chapter 1, verse 12. And it reads, and after they were brought to Babylon, Jeconias begot Seletio, and Seletio begot Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel begot Abihud. Abihud begot Eliakim, and Eliakim begot Azor, and Azor begot Sadak, and Sadak begot Akim, and Akim begot Eliam. See, it's the same name, right? You call them the same name. Right? And it says, in Azor, verse 15, it says, and Eliud begot Eliezer, and Eliezer begot Matan, and Matan begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Yahushua, or Christ, who is called Christ. So it's pretty much, you see the line right here. It's pretty much tying up everything just to show you from what we read in Genesis. Most of us going somewhere. Wrap everything around that same people, just to get to the main king, Christ.
Absolutely. But yeah, like I said, I can't stress it enough just how quick a family can grow and populate, right? It's just like same way plants can grow, not just with the help of us as husbandmen, as farmers, as horticulturalists, like people who deal with like flowers and things like that.
And it makes sense when you go through it.
And, I was just going to say real quick, sorry. Even with us doing it, planting these things, the Most High could even have these things plant and grow on their own. Just like I said, the passing of the seasons, just by having like a plant bear forth its pistil, like a flower or something, or like seeds come from a tree, or fruits come from a tree. The Most High can have the wind blow to have fruit or a seed go somewhere, and then Most High can have the soil just be in a right situation where that seed can go and plant itself. And you'll see a bunch of trees just growing up all by themselves, where the Most High can just do it just through the wind, right? Just through the soil, through the rain, and through the sun, utilizing those elements to make them grow on their own, let alone if he has us take part in that and try to take that matter to our own hands. Mm-hmm. You got it.
Yeah, fine. I was gonna say, it makes sense when you go to each name, right? Nobody worry, nobody say, oh man, the Holy Spirit, lay with this one and have this one, lay with this one there. But when it comes to Christ, it goes down and it show you Christ right here, right? It says in 15 and 16, and Jacob begot Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. That's when they start pulling, the holy birth. So it's pretty much a line that's he's showing you the line, like he came just like everybody else in the line.
Yeah, well, you read in Matthew pretty much from Babylon down to the end, right?
From 12 to 16. To 16.
Matthew 1, 12 to 16. So the house of David continues on, right? I even say this too when we talk about today's times, right? Think about this. They got movies about it. Like, what's the movie they made? Dan Brown, the Dan Brown books. He had that movie, Da Vinci Code. You go into that movie, which is based on a book, going into what they call the Merovingian bloodline. It's supposed to be the supposed line of Christ that continued on through Christ and Mary Magdalene, which we don't have any scriptural record to show that Christ took a wife. But according to them, yeah, they had a secret marriage and they had children, man. Over time led to like a certain figure. I mean, you jump forward in time. They mentioned this guy named Clovis the First. And Clovis the First supposed to be like one of the original founders of the Franks in France, right? Which led to what they call the Frankish dynasty, which later on led to supposedly Charlemagne, the king, this, that, and the third. I mean, those are the stories. But now, here's the thing I'll say, right? Don't forget what you're about to say. When we talk about Christ having kids, there's no evidence for that, no proof of that. But did Christ have brothers and sisters? Absolutely. Did they have sons and daughters? Absolutely. Did the sons and daughters possibly go up into Africa, Europe, other places? Sure, why not? Right? Could they become, in some cases, the Franks, or maybe the Visigoths, or the Gauls, other different, families read about during the Dark Ages? Could those have been branches of Christ's family? Sure, and not exclusively either. Could have been other families of Israel. We went into Europe and places like that. But as far as them making the claim that that's Christ's family, the Merovingian family, supposed to be, Illuminati claim that's supposed to be the 13th bloodline, and they claim that they got people within their ranks that are like Merovingian. That's like supposed to be the special bloodline amongst their bloodlines. But once again, it's just them trying to copy what's already our bloodline, just like them trying to copy our nationality and say we're the Israelites with their 13 bloodlines. They've done a poor attempt of trying to make themselves out into the 12 tribes of Israel. It's like, no, you guys are the like we jokingly say, the Dukes of Hazzard, right? You guys are the Dukes of Edom. That's who you are. Wear your hat, wear it proud, right? Because that's your inheritance, right? Not the 12 tribes or anything that looks like it. But, they'll try to claim that they're enlightened, that they have the light and this, that, and the third. But, time will tell that.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a 13 bloodline if you're talking about, Caesar Borgia, yeah?
Yeah.
You can have, I mean, you would think, as important as Christ is, as we go from Genesis, we reading about this guy as important as
this crisis. You think we would not have his line if he had, sons and daughters, right? Just outline the same way we're reading about the other men that he came from the line of David. It's just, nonsense.
Mhm, mhm. Right. So the main point I'm getting at is the Christ came from the line of David. He was born just like how we come into the earth, the same way. I want to get into it again. We'll revisit it. I'll just pull maybe a scripture or two, but not go into a full fledged. I know we just talked about it when I think Kahan went into Wisdom of Solomon, right? We read scriptures on that. As far as, every king haveth the entry into the world the same way, right? But just to fulfill that promise, like you read about in Matthew 1 and 12, right? Down to the end. I always like to read this. This is Psalms 132. I'll get one more to this and then we'll close out. Psalms 132 and verse 11. Psalms 132 and verse 11, which reads, the Lord, or Yahweh, hath sworn in truth unto David. He will not turn from it. It says, of the fruit of thy body will I set upon thy throne. Right? It says in verse 12, if thy children will keep thy covenant, and my testimony thou shalt teach them, their children shall also sit upon thy throne forevermore. See that? So that's what we have with the line of kings from David. But because they all didn't do it, that's when we had to fall away for a time. But then still, that promise had to be fulfilled as far as what? Christ coming out of that lineage. And not only that, but what? On both sides of the family. Because since you read Matthew, this is something I think is interesting too, something to just take a look at. Because if you see like different charts out there that show the lineage of Christ, when it comes to them being from the house of David, we know when Matthew chapter 1 is showing the lines, talking about was going back from his father Joseph. But then in Luke chapter 3, it's going back to his mother Mary, right? Where it starts with her father, her father's father, his father's father's father. But now we just read in 1 Chronicles 3, the different sons that David had, right? So if you go to Matthew, right? Chapter 1. I know we're just there. Let's go back there again. Check this out. Matthew chapter 1. Matthew chapter 1. It says in verse 6, and I'll read verse 7. Matthew chapter 1, verse 6 and 7. Verse 6. And Jesse begat David the king, and David the king begat Solomon of her that had been the wife of Urias. Talking about Bathsheba. It says, and Solomon begat Rehoboam, Rehoboam begat Abiah or Abijah, and Abiah begat Asa. We just read in 1 Chronicles 3. But if I go to Luke chapter 3, it works backwards. But look at who it goes to here, Luke chapter 3, when it comes to David. Just to show how the Most High is, he's on point when it comes to his garden, the way he has his vineyard set up, the way he has us as his vines grow, with his son being the conduit, right? Like Christ said in John 15, I'm the vine, you the branches, right? Christ being that true vine that we're all connected to spiritually, but then physically through us being rooted in the nation of Israel. Luke chapter 3. Okay, here we go. Verse 31. It says, which was the son of Meleah, which was the son of Menon, which was the son of Mattatha, which was the son of Nathan, which was the son of David. See that? So in this line, going through Mary, they both share common ancestry through David, but through different sons at this point, right? But when you jump up here to verse 27, it says the son of Joanna, the son of Risha, the son of Zerubbabel, which was the son of Shealtiel, which was the son of Neri. So they share common ancestry not only through Zerubbabel and Shealtiel, right? Even though they got the Padiah also mentioned in the Chronicles, but they share common ancestry through David, but through different lines. So if you see the charts online, they'll show like it kind of looks like a double helix, right? Where you'll see David, then you'll see Solomon, Nathan going to the line, and it'll converge at the middle with Zerubbabel and Shealtiel, and then it'll kind of go back out again, and then come back in again at the bottom when it comes to Joseph and Mary coming together to then have Christ. And you have the fourth generation separating those that double helix path. It's kind of interesting when you kind of chart it out to see how the Most High laid this thing out. And within a number that he decided. But us going through the motions, we don't know. But the scriptures tell us man's going to the Lord, right? How can a man understand his own way? So yeah, she's through Nathan, but then she being Mary, but he, Joseph, being through Solomon. So just something I wanted to point out if we didn't notice. But just showing how the Most High, he's the author of it all. He's the one that decides. And even when people, come together haphazardly, right? Committing boredoms and things like that. Even the Most High offered that too, because remember, the good and the evils of the Lord, he's taking account for all the wickedness, whether it be thoughts, not just actions, things said, things done. For all the literal bastards that are out there, the Most High knows their lineage where they go back to, right? Whether it was past kingdoms or even the current kingdoms that we're in right now, right? All things are being accounted for. And we'll have to answer for what we've done when we were here before and what we've done in this life. The last links for Luke chapter 3, 31, 32. That goes with Matthew 1, 6 and 7, which goes with Psalm 132 and verse 11. Here's my other one too. Like I said, not to make it a whole class about how Christ came to be. Even though we could, but this is Romans chapter 1 and verse 3, which I haven't seen anybody come back from this yet, that pushes the virgin birth and or the Immaculate Conception, which a lot of folks even don't realize. The Immaculate Conception has to do with Mary and how she was miraculously born, right? As far as her upbringing. So the Immaculate Conception has to do with Mary worship, which we know Christ told us about that. And people said, oh, blessed is the breast which thou hast sucked, and the womb which bare thee, right? And you read that in Luke, and he says, yeah. Talking about, yeah, my mother is blessed, but rather blessed are they to hear the word of God and do it. I'm kind of paraphrase, more or less. He said, those who hear the commandments and do it. So he even cut that at that point, because in his spirit, he could probably see, yeah, this one right here is gonna get out of hand when it comes to how they worship my mom. Which if Mary were here now, she would look at that and go, what are they doing? Why are you worshiping me? No, that's not bad. That the scriptures have never said to worship me as anybody, right? It's about my son. But you got the Catholic Church, hell bent, knee deep in Mary worship. Whereas the virgin birth is supposed to go into supposedly Christ coming into the earth without Joseph's sperm going into Mary, which is, ridiculous. Now, we always say this when we teach. Could the Most High do that? Sure. Most High can do whatever he wants. Right? Just like when the devil tempted Christ, said, make these stones, turn these stones into bread. Of course, that goes against the laws of nature. But could the Most High do it? Sure. He made nature. He can break it. He made the rules. He can twist them. Right? And even when he twists them, even that's part of a higher law, right? You might call it, divine law, if you will, or the laws of supernature, if you want to give it a name, maybe. When it comes to even miracles, have a science even behind them. But is that what Christ and the Most High, is that what he did when he had his son come on earth? Is that what he promised David? No. So does the Most High do that? Sure. Is that what he did according to the scriptures? No. And that's what we come in to say. That's not scriptural. That belief comes from somewhere else. But here, Romans chapter 1 and verse 3. Concerning his son, Jesus Christ, our Lord, which was made of the seed of David according to the flesh. And the best you can do now is so-called Christians say, oh, see, Paul, I don't know about Paul, man. See, man wrote the Bible. Paul was a man. So I don't know about that verse. So you mean to tell me you're really locking in now with this virgin birth business?
Oh, man.
Right, they got something to say about Paul the apostle now, right? Really? I mean, I don't know how much plainer you can get it in one verse. Which was made of the seed of David according to the flesh. Come on, people. Come on. I know it may not be what you're used to, but the scripture's saying what it's saying. And yes, we can go into the Greek, and it's saying the same thing in the Greek. So, where are you going to go now? You've been lied to. That's okay. But we were lied to as well. The question now is, are you going to come back to the scriptures and accept the truth of the scriptures? We're going to go along with the very convenient lie and celebrate these foolish so-called holy days like Xmas, right? And Ishtar. Just because your parents and your parents' parents, your parents' parents to parents, and your church doesn't. Or you be one of the few, not the proud, few and the humble, that what? Stand on righteousness, even when it's not the popular thing. That's the question we have to answer for ourselves. But yeah, I want to read that since we're talking about the line of David. So we read that in 1 Chronicles 3. And how it pertains to Christ. Now that line of David is still here today. We just don't know who's who amongst Judah. Just like House of Aaron, which we'll touch on also. When we come back to Chronicles, we can't say, who's who to come to the House of Aaron, right? We can't just go to, different cities in North America and say, okay, these are Judites, these are the House of David. Or go through Haiti, different cities in Haiti, and be like, okay, these are the House of Aaron. We can't do that. We don't know who comes from which family. But the Most High does. All right, so we'll make it end here unless anyone else has any other questions or comments or scriptures they want to pull. Okay. All right. Oh, I forgot to say, if you guys don't know already, here in the title, I meant to say that in the beginning. This is peaceful Sabbath, or another way of saying happy Sabbath, say peaceful Sabbath in the Hebrew and in Israel, or Shabbatha or Shabbat, and then Shalawama, or Shalom, which just means peace or peaceful, and then Yashara'Allah, which is Yasha'Allah or Israel. Ashar Chanukah also, since we're in the 4th day of that. Next week, I'll make sure to send out the email to everybody, which anyone who's been joining us somewhat recently, whoever's invited that are regular members, just make sure you text me or forward me their emails. I can just add them to my master spreadsheet. But I'll be emailing out copies of the Sabbath readings for the Gregorian year 2015 from next Sabbath all the way down to first week in July. All right, so look forward to that coming out. So we were in Chronicles today, 2 and 3, which means we're going to be in the Apocrypha next Sabbath. I mean, New Testament. So last time we did what? Chapters 9 and 10, right? So that means we're going to be doing 11 and 12 of Revelations for next week, if you follow the pattern, right? So Revelations 11 and 12. Let's do some housekeeping. So if you like to join us on our teleconference, we have every Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m. We know this last Tuesday and the Tuesday coming up are going to be holy days. It's going to be a little different. we're going to be keeping the holy day opening and closing of the Feast of Dedication, or Hanukkah in the Hebrew. But normally, if it's not a holy day, every Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m., you want to call the number 667-770-1085, conference code 521455 to get access. And while having the teleconference line open, we also do a Zoom call, which if you go to this website on your device, be it a cell phone, tablet, or laptop, or even desktop, as long as you have internet access, and as long as you have the Zoom app installed on your respective device, www.probabletalks.com. If you go to that website on your browser, on your device, it'll ask, do you want me to open this up in Zoom? Just click yes. It might ask you to log in. Just log in with your Gmail account, probably, if you have one, right? And then you'll be able to watch, interact that way. Also, for folks that want to donate to the church, either through check or money order, whether it be for tithes or for a holy day or just a free will offering, right? We have our address here, which is Ha Yash Alakana, spelled the way you see it there, H-A, and then Y-S-H-A-R-A-H-L-A, and then K-N-A-S, which just means the Church or Congregation of Israel. 3826B is in boy, Germantown Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19140. And if you wanted to donate electronically, we have paypal.me/HYK12, which you could use. Also, if you wanted to donate through Zelle, if you have Zelle, please donate to Zelle at the number 646-620-7378. Please like and share the video to continue spreading the word, as we are one of many branches of Christ, but the idea is to bring this out to as many souls as possible, regardless of what branch you're connected to, as long as it's rooted back in Christ, as he tells us, and I'll read this briefly in John 15, as I mentioned earlier. And I figured soon we read this also, this we're talking about the Chronicles, and then we're talking about the line of David today. So we're talking about the Chronicles and family lines and things like that, which you could liken unto a vine. This is St. John chapter 15. I'll start from verse 1. I'll read down to verse 5 and stop there. It reads, I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman, right? That's I was reference I was making earlier, about the Most High being the ultimate husbandman or gardener. Verse 2, every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away, and every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. It says, now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you, right? Another verse we like to use to show what the baptism truly is, right? That the baptism, it can't just be getting dunked with water, right? It's got to be what? Spiritual baptism, which is what? Water of life, the Bible. That's what it have to be used to really truly get the baptism, right? The water baptism is not wicked, it's just symbolic. But what good is it you wash with water and you still got filthy ways, right? Still got, using dirty money that you earn through ill-begotten means, right? Your washing with water means nothing if that's the case. Reading on in verse 4, abide in me and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine. No more can ye, except ye abide in me, right? So he's making the allegory very clear here. It says, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me, ye can do nothing. If a man abideth not in me, he is cast forth as a branch and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you, right? Because when we ask of the Father, when we have obedience, that's when we have the Most High listening ear. But the Most High turns his ear away from those of us that disobey his word, right? We're like that vine that's pretty much getting ready to be snapped off and thrown in the flames. So we got to have obedience to the commandments. We got to, right? Even if we're not all together there, we have to pretty much be showing that willingness to want to obey, to begin to have the Most High's blessing pour out upon us. Or I should say, pour out upon the soil upon which we're rooted, so that our branches can grow and continue. And remember, bearing forth fruit, it's other people coming in through you, through your example, but also bearing fruit is you becoming more Christ-like yourself. You keeping the commandments and you embodying the fruit of the Spirit, the ones you already had and the ones you're cultivating, right? Whether it be your faith, whether it be your patience, whether it be your experience, your brotherly kindness, your humility, your diligence, fill in the blank of whatever fruits of the Spirit we're talking about, right? That's how we become like these vines and be a part of that true vine, being connected back to the Most High, who's the husbandman, planted by him. All right? So we'll do the closing prayer now. I just want to say, Barak Ateh Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Na'arok HaKadosh, for without them, none of this would be possible for us to be able to come together and congregate on the Lord's Sabbath day to go through the lesson and to keep the feast of dedication that we are right now. Only through them do we have even the inkling or memory to know who we are, what we should be doing in these last days of time. So all thanks to them for us to come together today. All right. So we'll say a Shar Shabbat, happy Sabbath. Hope everybody was edified. Continue enjoying the feast, Israel. Remember, it's a Sabbath, but we can cook because during the feast week, which is over Wednesday sundown, we're going to have a closing feast this Tuesday coming up. Also, before that, the new moon always comes within the feast of our dedication. If you guys haven't noticed, we've been doing this for a couple of years. Monday sundown, we're going to come together for the 10th new moon. And then also Tuesday sundown, we're going to come together to keep the closing of the feast of dedication. So look forward to the seeing, hearing from you guys then. Right? So Shar Shabbat, Wa Ashar Chag. That would do the closing prayer. See you guys Monday night, both sides. And then Tuesday night, the follow. Yes, sir. Yes. Come. Not killing your prayers. Barakatiyahwa, Bashimi Hawashai, Asharat, and an hour party, Agapan Tuara Man. La Yawa, Bashimi Hawashai, Yashar. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Wow, Tanya, wow, you're awesome. Damn face, Drew. Yahweh Basham Yahushai Babakushai Shemai Nanawe Aipai Yam Yan Aipai Shalak Mike Allah Bala Alahayim Taswadakim La Shema Ayu Barak Rapai Magan Wakaziyak Banye Yash Allah Washalak Lanawa Rabiim Hakamad Rabiim Rabiim Bayanai Rabiim Sabalanwa Rabiim Amawan Rabiim Akwa Rabiim Mahabiim Rabiim Haganai Rachanaya Wasalak Ka Katsayam Nawa La Akim Wayash Allah Ye Waiwalam Basham Yahusha English translation, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai. Please listen to us now. Right now, send Michael and the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins. For the brothers, sisters in Israel, always and forever, in the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four Corners Prayer. Yahweh Basham Yahweh Shai Barak Nawe Viash Ale Babat Yasapariam Shema Yashrale Yahweh. English translation, we said Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us in Israel in the house of books. And then we said, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Let me do this one too. Every little bit helps. This is the prayer for the sick. Yahweh, Gadawol, Abiyanawa, Shabbat, Na, Tapala, Nawa, Mashamayim, Rapah, Kalanawa, Barucha, Hadashka, Yahweh, Alyawan, Hamalak, Iwalam, Kaya, Nayadai, Afa, Alahayim, Kayayam, Ropa, Kalanawa, Kakazaka, Yahweh, Alahayim, Kaya, Allah, Kanawan, Warochawam, Afa, Rapah, Yahweh, Kalanawa, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Mashiach, Banka, Kaya, Atha, Kwawawaf, Nawa, Adonai, Yahweh, Wamabatak Nawa, Thawada, Thumyad, Waiwalam, Aman. Okay. That will say Shak Hadash once again. Shak HaKanachah. Everybody have a blessed continued rest of the feast. That's we're at the midpoint. We got 4 more days of feasting. So enjoy Israel. Remember, you can cook on this day. Still keep it holy. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.